can serve an indigestion pills. That's a people of mine. Preparation.
Right, everybody, we'll kick off. We'll just start with the karakia. Mā te whakarongo, mā te kōrero, mā te nākau, mā te wairua, mā te manaki mai, mā te manaki atu, ka pōai, te maramatanga, tihei, Māori. Through listening, through talking, from the heart, from the spirit, through giving and receiving respect, understanding will bloom. This is the essence of life. Thank you. Welcome along to Wallacetown. We can tell it's a south wind winter, both inside and outside. I think we're probably 10 times the temperature outside inside. So, yeah, welcome along. Thank you for coming. The health and safety is slightly different to normal because in a different location. So the toilets are outside the room across the hallway that way. Should we need to evacuate for any reason, please exit out to the assembly point in the car park and put your ice skates on. And the event of the medivac, drop cover and hold if you can fit under the table. But please make sure our phones are on silent. And just a reminder that these proceedings are being recorded for the purpose of live video, both live streaming and downloading. So by remaining in this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed for viewing by the public. So we've got apologies today from Councillors Chamberlain, Bryan and Wilson for the whole meeting, and potentially from Councillor Grady for part of the meeting. She's currently coming in online, and all of those are granted leave of absence. I don't believe there's any further apologies because everyone else. Can I have a moment of those apologies, please? Councillor Menzies, seconded by Councillor Carter. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Anyone against? It's carried. Do we have any further requests for leave of absence?
So I'm away from the 19th to 26th.
We've got that one.
Got that one, yeah.
There being none, I don't imagine there's any conflict of interest today, but I'll just check. There being none, we don't have any extraordinary. We do. So the Assembly indicating the report that received on the 24-34 long-term plan consultation document was to be circulated. It was prudent for the meeting to agree today to the confirmation of the item being considered at this meeting. The reason why the item was not on the agenda when circulated is because the submissions received following the consultation on the long-term plan required collation and analysis to provide information to be considered by council when hearing the oral submissions. This is still being collated at the time that the agenda was circulated. The reason why the discussion of this item cannot be delayed until a subsequent meeting is that there's a timetable for the LTP adoption for the council meeting on the 26th of August. So I'll move from the chair that pursuant to section 46A of the Local Government Information and Meetings Act 1987 that we consider the late item for the submission of hearings. Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? It's carried. Right, so we've got two sets of minutes from the 29th of May and the 3rd of July on page 49 of the agenda. Do we have any discussion on those? So, do we have, we've already done it for you?
No, we haven't. We did an early one.
Right.
I don't know if I think it.
Someone have to move.
We did all that last week.
That's a seconded. Councillor Spraggins, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Anyone against? That's carried. We don't have any public participation for this part of the meeting, but we do have the oral submitted coming in about half an hour's time. So take us to our first item on the agenda, item 7.1, which is the representation review, representation proposal. This is on page 59 of your agenda. And this is recommending that we go out for consultation on the representation option. And just a reminder that this is a piece for our own representation review, not the future for local government part. So that's a separate piece. So this is for our own council to do our best for our elected members and come up with the best way of representing our lucky ratepayers. So I'll hand over to Michaela for thinking. Welcome.
Thank you, Lucian. Good morning, everybody.
So you've been through the process of, we've done pre-consultation around what the representation review should involve and what changes could be there. Taking it again in terms of the feedback that we got back, and this is the initial proposal that is in front of me now. From the last time you saw it, there isn't any change from when it was brought to the last council meeting, and I'll hand over to you for some points that she wants to bring out in particular. Thank you, Worship.
Good morning, Worship and councillors. So the proposal, as you would have seen, keeps the current ward and community board arrangements, but makes minor changes to the boundaries of some ward and community boards and corrects the spelling of some names of wards and community boards. The proposal being to retain 1 mayor, 12 councillors elected from 5 wards, 9 community boards with between 7 and 8 members, and subdivisions within 2 of the community boards. The 5 boundary changes proposed are to ensure that communities are grouped appropriately and are not divided. Those changes are at Dunurn, Drummond, Taramawa, Otamita and Nukamai Station. The correction of the ward and community board names is to include Macrons and Moreti and Wahoko Tortori and community boards, excuse me, and the Oraka Parima community board. You will have noted from the report that the proposal does not meet the fairness test of plus or minus 10% rule as required by the Local Electoral Act in the following areas: Stewart Island, Lakiura Ward, Moreti Ward, Wahoko Toitoi Ward, 1 subdivision of the Oreti Community Board and 2 subdivisions of the Northern Community Board. Council must resolve the reasons for why it considers each of these areas are justified as exceptions to the fairness test. The report outlines those reasons that staff believe that these are justified as exceptions. That is largely that the compliance with the fairness test would not support effective representation of communities. The LGC, the Local Government Commission, will also need to endorse those exceptions when they make the final determination on the representation arrangements for the district in April 2025. Consultation is outlined in the report, paragraphs 63 to 67. I won't go into detail, but you can take any questions on the consultation plans, and the draft consultation document is contained as attachment B. Following consultation, Council will make its decision on the final proposal on the 23rd of October. It is important to note that the proposal can only be changed at this point based on submissions received. Recommendations are on pages 61 to 66. They are long, but they are necessary to meet the legislative requirements. Have to take any questions.
Thanks, Vicky. And it's quite interesting because this highlights to me the uniqueness of our district and the fact that we're breaking the rules, so to speak, that the importance of having an accurate and safe representation. And looking at D4, the number of small communities that we've got is huge. There's a huge so it just highlights the size of our district too. Just before I open up the questions to Councillor Peace, want to mention anything as chair of the little subcommittee that we had to run through this process.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, that it's been an interesting time. Have the opportunity to clear the decks, if you like, and then decide what you're going to do. But I'm looking forward to the fact that there's only minor changes proposed, but also for the continuation of the community boards, the strength that are the community boards for us here in South, like being right across the board. So yeah, I'm pleased to see that the feedback to date, the suggestions that we've had, nobody suggested getting rid of them. And I think we'll go from strength to strength.
Are there any other questions from the board? There being none, I will take us to our very lengthy list of recommendations. And I promise I won't read out all the towns in D4 because we're still here at 4 o'clock. But again, that just highlights the huge district that we actually have to cover. So if we go through, let's go through them as a bit of a summary. So A through to C are outstanding. D that we're resolving to adopt the following representation proposal for the local authority elections to be held in 2025. So that's 12 councillors again. District divided into 5 wards, and the members of council other than the mayor will continue to be elected by ward. The names of the wards, the number of each members of the ward, and the population of each of those covers. So the boundaries of those 5 wards set out max container attachment A, including the minor boundary changes in the Mataroa, Waimea, the Waioi, Takarima, and Wallacetown wards. An extensive list of all of their names of population, each member represents is within the range as required by section 19B2 of the Local Government Act, except for Stewart Island, Makiora, Wellington, and Waipai Tortoi. It was provided by section B3A of the Local Electoral Act 2001, and the Stewart Island Makiora ward warrants 1 councillor as it is an island community. And it's provided by section 19B3A of the Local Electoral Act 2001, compliance of the Oriti Waipai Tortoi. Or section 19B2 of the Act would limit the effective representation of communities of interest either by dividing communities of interest or uniting communities of interest with few commonalities. And that the current community board arrangement with the 9 community boards be retained, and that the names of the community boards and the communities that represent are set out at the table below together with all of those names. And that the boundaries of each community board area are both set out in the maps container attachment A and include those minor changes to the boundaries as specified earlier. The Oriti Community Board will comprise 8 members, 7 members will be elected and 1 member will be appointed by council representing the Oriti ward. The Oriti Community Board will have 3 subdivisions for electoral purposes. And the populations of each of those subdivisions is outlined in the table. The population represented by each member elected by the Mikadera subdivision of the Oriti Board does not fall within the range in accordance with section 19B2, but as provided in the section 19B3 compliant section would limit the effective representation of communities of interest by dividing communities of interest or uniting communities of interest with few commonalities. But the Northern Community Board will comprise 7 members, 6 members will be elected and 1 member appointed by council representing the Mataroa Waimea. The Northern Community Board will have 3 subdivisions for electoral purposes. The population of each of the members and the table. The same again that doesn't quite comply, but we're doing it for the commonalities. The Waipai Tortoi will have 8 members and 7 members. That's actually all the same as the other one. No, that's not, sorry, that one actually complies. Not subdivided, but Fiordland, Lassa, Tapu to Waiwai, Oraka, Tarima, Wallace Takatinu and Stewart Island Makiora community boards will each comprise 7 members, 6 members will be elected and 1 member will be appointed by council representing the ward in which the board is situated. These boards will not be subdivided for electoral purposes. The spelling names of the following areas are corrected to include the macrons, so Waipai Tortoi, Waipai Tortoi Community Board, Oriti Board, Oriti Community Board, Oraka Community Board. Just about at the end, in accordance with section 19K of the Electoral Act 2001, the reasons for council's decision include that the minor changes to the ward, community board and subdivision boundaries will avoid splitting communities across different electoral areas or grouping communities that do not have commonalities. The existing structure with minor changes will continue to provide effective representation for the district's communities of interest, and the names of some electoral areas are spelled correctly. So we're approving the draft document contained in attachment B as the basis for public consultation on the representation proposal. And note that council must get public notice of representation proposal within 14 days of making its decision. And there's an opportunity for an interested person to make submissions on the proposal. And note that any oral submissions on the representation proposal will be heard on the 18th of September 2024. So that's all for me. Do we have someone in a position to move all of those recommendations? Councillor Menzies, seconded by Councillor Fraser. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Anybody against? That's carried. Thank you for your work on that, and thank you for leading that team as well. So the next item on our agenda is the reason why we're out here today, public, and the lengthy process that we've been through over the last 18 months are going to continue. So feedback received on the looking for 34 long-term plan consultation documents, submissions and queries. Welcome Robin again.
So we are here today to hear from the submitters as we're all aware, that have requested to speak to council. We do have a cover report that outlines some of the feedback themes and the options preferred of the issues presented in the consultation document. I will take the report as being read and I will highlight some of the points as well. Firstly, if I could focus on the report's attachments. So attachment A, that is the attachment for today really, that's all the submissions in which the submitter has requested to speak to council. These are in alphabetical order of first name so that the council can navigate the document quickly. At the time of hearing the documents at the end of the consultation period, 47 submitters have requested to speak. As we're working through the process with the 47, there's 34 speaking over the next 2 days. There's a couple of submitters we have yet to hear from, so there is some stuff tomorrow. So that's attachment A. Also in your attached to your report, attachment F is a summary of all of the submissions. And they're under each of the consultation questions ordered by the preferred option of the submitter. And they have a reference number that aligns with the spreadsheet that staff have used to collate them all. Attachment E is our timetable for today. You can see we've got quite a busy day today. The number of submitters this morning in the forestry industry and focusing on the changes of the target rates. Each submitter that's coming in to speak has been allocated a time slot of 10 minutes. That's approximately 5 minutes to speak and 5 minutes for questions. Where there is some times on the timetable that might say 1:25 rather than 1:40, that's about working with the submitter to get the right time rather than giving extra time to the person prior. Attachment B and C are all of the remaining attachments in which submitter did not request to speak. B being all of the online submissions that have come through from survey making, and C being the remaining ones that come in via email or office drop-off. The red number on your submissions relates to the spreadsheet that staff have used to collate all of those submissions. So now to the report. So council have received 312 submissions. 177 were via survey monkey, which was online, and the remaining were either via submissions email inbox or dropped off in office. A couple of submissions that were actually handed to us while we're out in the community. And there's also 2 submissions here from the previous consultation around their policies. Of the 177 online submissions, the 64 were non-completed. So we tested that online survey 3 times during the process to make sure that there wasn't an issue with it. And found that the majority of incomplete surveys were clicked on and then clicked off again. So suggesting that someone had gone and had a wee look and then clicked off again, not necessarily wanting to submit. We did check in with a couple of people that did put their names in and then didn't submit in the online survey, and the response was that there was nowhere that they could add an attachment to the survey. So staff have reviewed that and will include that option in future surveys that are on. There were, of those 177, so 64 incomplete, so it sort of takes us to 248 submissions all up. Of those, 9 of them were late, so they come in after the 12 o'clock period on Friday the 5th. So council's being asked today to consider those submissions along with the rest. The consultation document asks for feedback on 4 key issues. They were the water services management, roading, bridges and roading program, and glass recycling in the town airport. We also asked questions on some of the target rates changes along with the financial contributions and the development contributions. And finally, submitters had an opportunity to add any comments as well. The data from each of the consultation topics is within the body of the report. It's really the data. There's not really an analysis at this stage. That analysis will come as we head more into the deliberations meeting and following our hearings today. Roading was the topic that had received the most submissions over the submission period, and submitters provided commentary 70-80% of the time. So rather than just ticking an option, there was some commentary there for a lot. And that can be viewed, probably the easiest way to view that is in the summary document underneath each topic, and ordered and the option preferred. The general feedback focused on the themes of affordability, getting stuff done effectively and efficiently, and council sticking to core business. The following the hearings today, staff will complete the analysis of the issues presented in the consultation document, and will present issues and options papers to council for the deliberation meetings. Back over to you, Your Worship, to see if there's any questions about the submission process.
Thank you, Robin. And I guess it's an opportunity for me to acknowledge a few people. Firstly, all the submitters that actually took the time to feed in. 312 is quite a big number. I think about 50 more than last time around. So the engagement's increasing, and yes, I really appreciated the number of people that have let us know their views. And secondly, to yourself and the team that have done all this hard work. I know it's been a very compressed time frame and many late nights, even travelling around the district from yourself late at night. So it's been, yeah, the commitment from the team has been really valued. So thank you. And I guess also to the team who had a 1,506-page agenda to read this weekend. A lot of reading, but just to let our ratepayers and submitters know that we do take them seriously, and I know that we've all gone through each of those submissions and read them as well, and looking forward to hearing them today. So yeah, it's been a mammoth task to get to where we've got to today, but yeah, looking forward to hearing from our oral submission. Any questions?
Thank you. The one feedback I've heard from a couple of ratepayers is that if we had an option somewhere where people can go to a form and then exit and come back later, because some of the questions that people have said don't have enough information, they sort of gave up because that ability was not there, and you get stumped at one and then give up. Perhaps we could explore a possibility of something like that, so people can begin a form and come back to it later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a run.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you so much. Just got one. I noticed a submission.
Sorry, could you just speak up a bit?
Oh, sorry.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, I noticed a submitter had asked to go back. Just he wanted to know who had actually read the submission. Do we go back with anything to this instead of asked to read questions?
Yes, we do. So as part of the management of the submissions that have come in, it's quite a large spreadsheet sitting council's CMT at the moment. And the plan from that is that we will go back and respond to each submitter that has submitted, answer the questions where we can. And the general feedback, some of the requests that have come through are more like request for service. So we need to manage all of those as well, but definitely we've responded to submitters.
Thank you, Robin. Will we get to see the responses to the submitters?
So yes, I understand.
You can if you wish, or of course just recognising that there's going to be a lot of letters that are going to be going back, which are going to take up large volumes. So
I've just done a big read.
So what we normally do is with the document, the summary document, there's usually the start and that go alongside that. So the potential is that as part of the issues and options paper that we present, we'll also put those staff comments on there, which will form the basis of the letters to which we'll be responding. And then you can at least get a flavour for that. But those documents, of course, are all public. So
That's okay.
Thank you, Worship. So are we obliged to, do we have to go back and respond to everybody?
I'm not sure
All
about
the submitters?
yes, really, Worship. I'm not sure about obligation, but I think it's good practice to do so.
Yes, yeah, no, just checking that there was one person that said don't respond, he didn't need a response, save the service.
Save the service.
Do we respect that as well, or are we obliged to?
In the case of that person councillor, and I've dealt with that person before, like a phone call can potentially save the stamp, and we can talk in a different way. So yeah,
Excellent.
did you have a comment?
And just mentioning that Survey Monkey does respond via email as well. Those submitters. And the submissions that come into the email inbox, they had a very brief thank you for your submission and acknowledgement as well, but also So, the letters also will go back to us.
There was just a clarification that the responses will go out by email where possible. So there's actually very few stamps that will be applied. It's interesting.
I'm just wondering if the summer where we can make a general statement that all of the submissions have been read by everybody.
Whatever you wish, if we can incorporate that into the response.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Comments? Okay, so I'll take us to our recommendations there that were received for that report. Titled feedback received from 24-34 long-term plan consultation document submissions and hearings after July 2024. We determined that it's recognised as not significant in terms of the economy, but standard one compliance decision-making provisions. That we received the submissions made in attachments A, B, and C of the officer's report, that we agreed to accept the late submissions included in this report. We agreed to not receive any further late submissions, and we received the informal feedback from Council's Facebook page and drop-in sessions included in attachment D of the officer's report. And we agreed to hear all submitters who wish to be heard on the long-term plan 24-34 consultation document. Someone in a position to move A through to H. Councillor Menzies, seconded by Councillor Baker. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? That's carried. Thanks, Anne. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
So you're ready to probably adjourn for
Everybody have finished submittal here?
okay, cool. So just bear with me for 2 seconds. We're just double checking our technology here. Just bear with me for a second.
Submissions being from the.
Sounds like a bit earlier.
That's good.
Here, where you go, most well.
It just flashed red there. Just double checking Sarah that she can hear us.
No, but not here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, how long they should have gone over.
I can still hear. It's actually really clear. That's good.
Oh, no, when we don't give any, we got nothing in.
That's what it's.
We don't have anything. Turn off the hotspot now. We just have internet, so there's a hotspot this morning to download the agenda.
I know.
Okay, so we've got our first speaker during at 11:30, which is an hour away. So we've got to sort out a bit of IT as well. So I'll adjourn the meeting. We can have a cup of tea and warm up, and we'll come back in prior to 11:30 for our first speaker.
It's warmed up.
It's warm. Go and get batteries.
So we'll come back in at a few minutes.
Strict, get a frying pan.
There's 5 minutes to speak. There'll be a reminder to limit 2 minutes. And then there'll be 5 minutes for questions, and just a reminder for councillors that it's questions for clarifications, not statements and like that, and not entering into debate with the submitters, but welcome to ask them questions. So we have our first speaker here, which is Chris Dermody, who I believe is speaking on behalf of Anton Ridley for iFest Growth. And that is on page 87 of your agenda with a submission. So welcome up, Chris, and thank you for coming on.
Yeah, morning, everyone. Thanks for the chat. As mentioned, my name is Chris Dermody, and I'm speaking to the submission from iFest Growth. So iFest Growth, we're a forest management company operating throughout New Zealand, but founded and based out of Chicago, and a lot of our forestry assets are involved in the SDC. I guess to get it out, YPS, we're not opposed to a fair and equitable targeted rates pricing, but we do, however, strongly disagree with a lot of the assumptions in the rating model, and we think there's some serious flaws with the modelling used there. In a nutshell, we think this overstates the impact of forestry. We know we have an impact, but we think the modelling used is wrong and severely overstates the forestry impact while understating perhaps other disciplines operating within SDC. So I thought I'd just cover off a few of the issues that we found with the modelling. Speak to those, I suppose. I guess the really obvious one for us as an industry was the assumptions used for truck configuration. Deep within the modelling, there's an assumption made on the types of vehicles used in the log haulage industry in Southland. We very quickly discovered that these are wrong and outdated. Simply not the trucks that are used to cut logs in Southland anymore. Within our submission, we've got some feedback from two of the log haulage companies we use in Southland, compliance managers, and very quickly said, well, that's not the trucks that are used in Southland. And in fact, if the modern trucks that are used in Southland were put in the modelling, this would have a real impact on the rating outcomes for forestry properties. They also had some feedback on the dairy network efficiency equivalency. So that was these are transport companies, so they're very well placed. I'm no expert on truck configuration, but it was a very obvious one to them that these assumptions were outdated and all wrong. They were actually particularly annoyed with the assumption that logging trucks, there's a 10% overload assumption built into that model. I mean, that's a legal matter. These compliance managers were really insulted, I suppose, it's probably the right word, that that assumption's been built in. And we know that no similar assumption is made for any other rate-paying industry. So it's restricted. They're restricting that forestry overloading. And the feedback was that weight technology has come a long way in the last while. And what perhaps was once an issue is not an issue anymore. Moving on to a couple of the other issues, these related to, I guess, errors we found in the modelling for other industries. So the forestry industry is rated on total volumes, but we thought that other areas were perhaps given a free pass or completely wrong. Supplemental feed on a dairy farm was a really obvious example. There is a weighting in the model for feed and grain for dairy of 15,000 tonne for the whole district. We were able to pull some pretty available stats out of Dairy NZ to show that this was grossly understated. We used Dairy NZ stats to come up with a figure closer to 265,000 tonnes, so massive variance there. And we don't think that would lead to fair and equitable outcomes across the district. Winter feeding was another one. I know there's a lot of farming councillors here that the assumption was based on 10% of dairy stock wintered off farm. That's a national average. We all know that Southland averages is very different. Again, Dairy NZ tells us pretty clearly that I've got a graph here that shows it's actually over 50%. And I think we'd all recognise that it's probably closer to 80% or something like that. So we've modelled out using the same calculations from your model based on 50%, so probably at the lower end. And we get a value we come to a conclusion that the rating calculation workings understate this area by over 150,000 tonnes. So, not even close there. Also, fertiliser use, that was another one that jumped out at us. Again, the rating model uses a source from Stats NZ, which we fact-checked, and we had a massive variance here as well. So I guess in summary, we feel that it's massively overstates forestry's impacts and massively understates other industries in the region.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the detailed submission and coming along to speak as well. Just a question. Before. You mentioned that you've got forests in other parts of New Zealand. Do you have similar issues with the rating in other council areas?
We find that different issues in different regions. So there's issues in different regions with forestry that are very the different Southern issues, I guess. This submission's focused on this rating proposal, so haven't really covered any other regions.
Are there any questions from the floor for Chris? I believe you've got the next speaking piece as well, so you can probably, if you wanted to say a little bit more to cover off. I see you hadn't quite finished. But...
Yeah. Avoid time when you're funded, but yeah, I guess so. The next slide is I'm speaking for the submission provided by New Zealand Timber, which is a forest owning entity that we're involved with throughout Southland. And I guess to finish off those points around a couple of the issues we had with the model, summed up with a summary table here showing that the variances that we calculated based on the available information were huge. So I understated some of the other issues. And circling back to the real crux of the, a real basic issue for our industry was using the wrong trucks. How can you attach the words fair and equitable to the wrong trucks in the model? And we're able to punch that into your modelling, and the impact on that is huge to the outcome, I suppose. So, yeah, we're more than happy to pay a share as part of the district, but you've got to use the right trucks. So there's also issues with forestry is quite complicated in terms of how it's classified. There's all sorts of different types. There's ETS opportunities. Not all forests have that. It's different stages. But it creates a massive, everybody's rated the same under this. So it creates massive levels of inequalities across the properties. For example, a forest with no available ETS opportunities, which is classed as pre-90 forest, will have a lower value than a recently planted forest. But at harvest, which is what the modelling is done on, the volume extracted is the same quality, weight, and price per hectare, yet the recently planted block will pay 3 to 4 times the amount of rates due to the high land value. So again, fair and equitable, I can't see it. The carbon side of things is a complex thing. We have 100% of our registered forests are in the averaging scheme, so we're targeted towards productive forestry. Actually, opposed in a wider sense on the forestry. We think the opportunities for a district for production harvesting are large, but now it's potentially on the table for some of these forest owners because, a permanent carbon, locking up plots that'll never be cut down because you've got that option to put it in permanent carbon, which we don't want to do, but it has been discussed, I guess, as a result of this proposal. So, as I said, both submissions cover the same areas, and I think I've got it through it too. So.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you wearing sort of 2 hats, but 1 hat at the same time. Yeah. So, just in terms of when you mentioned in the different types of trucks, if the model was changed to reflect the differences in the trucks, would that make you more comfortable with what's proposed, or is it the whole thing you have an issue with?
Well, it is. That would make a difference, sure. And I would assume that everyone would be pretty keen to get that basic one right. And as I said, it does make a difference in the model. But also, we think that there's potentially areas like that forestry has essentially been asked to subsidise. We know our impact, and we know we have an impact. But there seems to be concessions for other industries. But some of these variances in the modelling are huge. And we just want to play a part. But we think the burden's being unfairly pushed all towards forestry.
Are there any other questions from? Councillor Dudley?
Well, sorry, Chris, it's nothing to do with the roading model, but do you accept that there's actually an influence in a lot of places on roads through shading from forest? It's a concern and a cost.
Yeah, we got EDS standards that are quite exacting on shading. So we have to plant to buffers essentially to avoid shading issues. Except that there's potentially issues all around Southland, shelter belts on farms as well, same sort of thing. But we have rules, we're governed by rules around things like shading and planting of road boundaries and woodways. And we can be prosecuted if they're wrong. So
what are those rules?
It depends. I'd have to look them up, but it depends on the aspect, north facing, south facing, all those sort of things. But they are designed to limit the effects of shading on road.
That's about it.
Thank you. I think yes. Are you aware that close to 96%, unless I'm mistaken, of the rating for dairy and others is made up from the milk volume? So you do mention the disparity, that we must have the volumes of, say, the feed and the animals trucked off, which is, you are right, the more can be 60 to 70%, but 96% of what we are rating them on is their milk volumes. So there might be a disparity, but it will be a very small quantum. So it's just 4% which would make up all of this. So just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I sort of don't understand it. Sorry. So all the volumes that are used,
yes. So the volume
doesn't count.
The milk volume is what makes up the bulk. 96% of that, of their total rates, go on the basis of the milk volume. So while there is a disparity, and this is something that was discussed at the council workshop as well, and we do need to somewhere fine tune it, but much of theirs it goes with the volumes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would say fine tuning is probably.
Yeah,
sort of a stretch when you're out by that far.
But then can be just 4% margin left there, and 96% is with the milk volumes. So perhaps what looks really big in quantum here, when actually quantified, won't be quite as large.
And I guess, but it doesn't, I suppose, address the issues of transport efficiency and the wrong trucks.
And the assumption that
and overstating one truck and understating another. So.
Are there any further questions from the team? Man, thank you very much for that, Chris. Really appreciate you taking the time to come and speak. Thank you. Appreciate it. Hey, so do we have Matt Dean? Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Mark Dean. I'm a forestry planner for Earnshaw 1. Perhaps before I start, I could just offer a little bit of clarification on the councillor's question here around shading. All forestry operations, commercial forestry operations, now operate under the National Environmental Statement for Commercial Forestry, NESCF. And the rules are quite clear there. No shading of roads between 10 and 2 on Tuesday.
With respect, that only applies to tar seal roads, not gravel.
Stand corrected on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's having an effect in our area.
Earnshaw 1's the 4th largest owner and manager of commercial forests in New Zealand. Nationally, we manage close to 100,000 hectares of plantation forest. In Southland District, our company owns 3 forests totaling 8,660 hectares. Of this land area, only 73%, 6,500 hectares, is actually stock planted in commercial trees, all of which was planted in the mid-1990s. More than 15% of that remaining area, more than 15% of the area is in actual fact tied up in reserves, so permanent forest. for which, under this proposed model, we expect that we will be rated at commercial plantation rate. Question 1, is that fair? The 3 forests serviced by Southland District Council roading network have an average of 2.6 kilometres of unsealed road and 16.4 kilometres of sealed road, linking them into the state-wide network. Perhaps a little uniquely in our situation, we grow Douglas fir forests, but for the first 27 years, until 3 years ago, we used absolutely no heavy transport aside from some road maintenance equipment on that road. By my estimates, under the current or proposed model, we would have contributed more than $3 million into council coffers, obviously not all targeted to roading, but nevertheless $3 million into council coffers over that period, the equivalent of $43,000 per kilometre of road that we haven't yet used, aside for normal light traffic commuting vehicles. That said, we understand that the Southland District Council roading network is underfunded, ongoing repairs and maintenance. Equally, we acknowledge that heavy vehicle traffic reduces the service life of pavements, and as users, we're happy to pay our fair share. The question is, what is our fair share? Estimates suggest that 30% of plantations will not be captured by this targeted program because of the 40 hectare lower bound, effectively giving those forest owners a subsidy at the expense of the remaining forest owning ratepayers. The model, as described in the LTP, fails to account adequately for many farm inputs, feed, fertiliser and stock movements for winter grazing, for example. The model assumes 10% of stock are wintered off the platform, and yet Dairy New Zealand data, published data, make it at more than 50% of stock wintered off farm in Southland. That's an underestimate of 40%, so it could be up to 200,000 tonnes. Yet, on the other hand, the model proposes an equivalent standard axle allowance for logging vehicle trucks 50% greater than the actual configuration actually used by more than 90% of the current logging transport fleet in Southland. We request that the model be reworked using the more correct R22T23 or R22T22 configuration for forestry. That is a 4-axle tractor unit with a 4 or 5-axle trailer. This fleet uses state-of-the-art air suspension and routinely piggybacks our trailers, which have an arguably lighter tear rate than the stainless steel tanks that we see so often on dairy tankers, which the preamble was referring or comparing logging transport to. And yet the model suggests that tankers are 40% better than log trucks. To my mind, that's nonsensical, and we respectfully request that the scientific justification be made available before this assumption is allowed near the mine. Whilst we don't pretend to be experts, we request a fair hearing on this. Likewise, we request that assumptions of routine overloading, 10% has been suggested, be completely removed from the model. Our own analysis of over 1,500 loads carted by one contractor on the Southland District network in the past year reveals that in fact they were on average 10% under the maximum loading for the vehicle class. To imply systemic law breaking is insulting to a highly professional service provider, and it's our opinion that any infringement should be dealt with by the authorities, the relevant authorities, ensuring compliance with the law, not by some guesstimate or a legal fluff factor justifying an illegal activity. In summary, Earnswell 1 will continue to do our share to contribute to the economy and social fabric of Southland District. We just ask to be respected as legitimate contributors to our community, and as such be given a fair deal along with the other land users, even-handed justice, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and much appreciated, and thank you for taking the time to come and speak and submit as well. You may have asked me to ask this question to the previous speaker, but just in terms of, you've got forests in other districts as well.
Yes, obviously we have 100,000 hectares nationwide. And yes, I did take a look at our per hectare rating allowance, and congratulations, Southland will go into the top quartile of rating. Of course, we have forests on the east coast, and you'll most likely all be familiar with the name Earnswell 1 for the wrong reasons up there. And I can assure you that the environment here is far more attractive geophysically than that which we have to work within on those highly erodible soils. So not necessarily fair comparison is the point of view.
Are there any questions from the floor? Yeah, look, we've got a bit of a forestry theme today, so yeah.
It sounds a bit like it.
Probably they've already been asked by previous.
Clusters, yeah.
Well, this is nice. Please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Do we have Hamish? We've got a PowerPoint for this one. Sorry, nice councillors, we've got me back to the screen. We've had to see the screen behind it.
I will download those later on and put them on.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So that's on page 280 in your agenda as well. If you're looking for the submission. Oh, thank you, Hamish. The floor is yours.
Yeah, kia ora and good morning, everyone. My name's Hamish Fitzgerald. I'm the Regional Manager for Rain and Battery Compliance here in Southland. I've got 25 years professional experience in forestry management and geographic information systems, both here and overseas. 5 minutes doesn't give me much time, so we will get to yeah, I'll just start with a bit of background information on our business. We're New Zealand's third largest forest owner, of which we've about 30,000 hectares in the SDC territory. 24,000 hectares of that is in commercial forest and 6,000 hectares, so around 20% is in conservation land. We've got the sum total of 0 hectares registered in permanent carbon forestry, and we haven't planted any farms up in Southland for more than 20 years. We employ 10 staff as managers effectively, and we've got around about 200 full-time equivalent contractors and their employees. We've been in Southland since '92, commissioned the in-depth plant at the tower that's now owned by Daikin. It employs over 100 people. And most of our estate, which you can see on the map on the right, is ex-New Zealand Forest Service forests. Forest Service was disestablished in 1987, so it's been around a while. Our oldest forest goes back to the 1930s, which is Pebbly Hills, which was actually planted using depression labour nearly 100 years ago. So we've been around a while. So don't have too much time for preamble, so I'll get straight into some flaws we've identified in the model. So firstly, and probably most importantly, and apologies if it's doubling up on the previous speakers, but the assumption that a logging truck creates 50% more damage to pavements than a dairy tanker for every tonne carried is false. there's no material difference. Most log trucks and dairy tankers in Southland operate with a 4-axle truck, 5-axle trailer unit. So that's the predominant configuration for those industries. High productivity motor vehicle, the pro forma specifications are the same, they're generic. It doesn't matter what's being carried, it's the specification for the truck that's important, truck and trailer. So new units are reviewed for compliance with those specifications before a certificate of fitness is issued. So yeah, I'll just leave that there, that they're the same. Assumption that 10% of log trucks overload, again, this has probably been covered. I have found some data from years ago that says that nationally that this is right for all industries. But if you were going to use a real number, 3% is the benchmark for what the codes have. And I'm sure any forest owner in Southland would be happy to open their books and show you that 10% is it's just wrong. It shouldn't be like that. And the third point, that dairy tankers travel 10% less distance than other industries. You know, our loads go from one single location on the local network out to the state highway directly. Your dairy tankers go to multiple stops along the local roads before going out to state highways via local roads as well. So I don't have evidence on that, but again, a network analysis using GIS could come up with that answer pretty quickly. Not quickly, but it could be found. Another couple of issues with the model as it stands are some assumptions whereby the outputs are disproportionately weighted to what's being produced from the land, and the inputs onto the land have been underestimated, at least in a couple of examples, which I'll just show for. So those are inputs I'm talking: winter grazing, PKE, supplementary feed, owners, fertiliser, etc., etc. So this slide's got a couple of examples. Firstly, the SDC model around winter feeding, assuming that 10% of the stock is moved off farm for winter feeding. The map on the right is from a Landcare research publication. So Landcare is a Crown Research Institute, which shows that more than 50% of that winter feeding with the stock is moved off farm. So presumably the number in the model is out by a factor of 5 more to get from 10% to more than 50. The fertiliser use, I think this is a genuine error with the model. 66,000 tonnes assumed. Anyone who's been on the Statistics New Zealand website, I certainly find it very difficult. But I've actually referenced and found the spreadsheet referenced in the LTP supplementary data, and it's actually close to 200,000 fertiliser moved onto tonnes moved onto farms per annum. So yeah, it's out by about a factor of 3. There may be more examples, but none of the two that I've identified. So what does this mean for us? The proposed rates for the roading differential for us will go up by 63% from this year to next. Jane just mentioned that 72% overall. So 72% overall, 64% of the roading component. And will be more than double by 26, 27. The inequity between industries is pretty clear. Our rates will be 5.5 times that of dairy and 9.5 times that of non-general sheep and beef per dollar seedbed. As Mark touched on, the geomorphology, the soils, the terrain, the workforce, everything is different between us and Wairau Taira Whenti. Don't confuse us with what's happened up there. There's also carbon forest. Please don't confuse commercial forestry with carbon forestry. Completely different. So I guess just to wrap up, the assumption used for log trucks on the equipment standard axles are erroneous, and we'd really welcome the opportunity to work closer with the SDC. We've got an engineer in-house, a batch of engineering, to work through an equitable method of rates collection. And we really want a balance we want evidence-based and fair outcome for not just us, but the South of the community. And that was me.
That's cool, thank you very much, and it's clear you've done a lot of work in providing this, you're not just saying it's wrong, but you're actually backing it up with good data there, and that makes it a lot easier for us to process as well, so thank you for the time that we put into this presentation. Are there any questions on Councillor Fraser?
I'm just curious because it's come up in a couple of presentations around the percentages of reserve or native forest on the block. What does that do to the effect of the capital value of the property? Is that taken into account, or is it just land area so much per hectare?
Yeah, it should be taken into account.
Yeah.
You want me to come up to the table? Jane?
Yeah, sorry, forestry land, forestry land, yes, should be valued on the productive area of it. Generally it is. So, yeah,
yeah. So that 20% of non-planted conservation land is reserves, it's native bush, it's tussock, it's wetland, it's waterways. So cumulatively that adds up to about 20% of our land.
But it wouldn't add 20% of your capital value, it'd be much lower.
There's no sort of commercial gain from that area.
So, thank you.
probably some names of farm.
Yeah.
No further questions.
No further questions, I don't think, but thank you very much. Thanks, guys. And you both will stay up there. So we've got, Jane Higgins up now, and this is page 280 as well. And I'll hand over to you, Jane, if you want to. We have another PowerPoint.
Oh, it's just a bit of an outline.
Cool.
Yeah. Get a bit about forestry already by the sounds.
Yeah.
But again, that's because we do see it when we saw the proposal, it didn't seem to be, a significant increase for forestry in particular, and we just wanted to explore why that was and have a look at it. So we attended the workshops prior just to listen to how the model was made up and just found that did seem to be some flaws, and these guys have been over that quite a bit. But again, just reassuring what Hamish said, we've been around for a while. We're kind of significant ratepayer in the forestry space in Southland. We've been paying 30% of those forestry rates, and yeah, we're paying about 300 at the moment. It's going to increase almost 200,000 just on the roads portion. So pretty significant for us. So we needed to look into it a little bit more and see why that is. And we consider, Rainy considers itself to be a pretty, large part of the region down here and contribution economically and socially. So, yeah. Looking at the model that was used, again, just seem to be incorrect assumptions around the logging trucks. The ESA, which we understand the ESA saying it's causes 50% more damage, logging trucks was. That was the factor that they applied to increase the tonnage to work the rates out on. So it sort of increased the tonnage, forestry tonnage by 20% because of that other use factor. So we really think that needs to be explored a bit more to, it may have been outdated or it needs to be looked at just to make sure that it is accurate. So quite likely to be looked at. The overloading claim, we hadn't seen any evidence for that. Hamish touched on the agricultural reports that have been ignored, just to make sure things are compared fairly. The commercial is probably a more insignificant part of it, but the 3-year average and the workings were assessed at 406, but there was a figure of 230 used just for their share of it. So it's just sort of exploring, whether they're accurate or not, and whether it's fair. I think we just wanted to just touch on the benefits to forestry to Southland. As we like to be part of the community, we put a bit of maintenance into the roads, some of the public access roads. Beverly Hills is one example.
we do a lot of maintenance across public access easements that go into, these are just a couple of examples here, into picnic areas and conservation areas. So we're not obliged to maintain them under the terms, but we do keep them up to date and usable for the public. With another example, we've incurred more cost to detour tracks when needed to assist the council. We carried out some dust suppression trials on public roads at a cost, and I think we included in our submission the economic report that showed the benefits of forestry, almost greater sort of per hectare than farming. And we're a much smaller part of the land area, forestry and farming, but we do have a significant contribution to make both economically and socially. Employment in the region, a lot of recreational advantages to biodiversity, the mountain biking access, public access through the forest, things like that. Important. So just really in summary, we just saw the targeted roading model as being a bit inequitable compared to other heavy vehicle users, and the assumptions may not be correct. We kind of urged this to be reviewed and got right. I think it's but probably the whole forestry versus farming thing is we're quite aware of that, and we're not the bad guys. We're not making millions of money, millions of dollars. We're just trying to make a business work, and just want to be treated fairly. It's a 72% increase in total rates compared to 30% for other sectors. It just doesn't seem fair. The models used don't seem accurate. Yes.
No, thank you very much for that, Jane. And just echoing my comments before. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions?
Thank you, Jane. Not to take away from your other comments, but I'm just interested to hear a little bit more about the dust suppression work that you've been doing and what that looks like.
Got to come up, Hamish, and then they'll just get you on the sound properly. Thanks.
We've had tried a couple of products. One near Castle Downs Road, and another one near Scott's Gap. I can't remember the name of the road, whereby neighbours have been affected by the dust from the logging trucks going past. We got a resource consent to apply, I think, 2 different products, and at about a cost of $6,000 or $7,000 at each site. We applied them. They were both pretty disappointing, the results. We probably spent $15,000 on the 2 trials, and we might have controlled the dust for a week or 2. So we do want to try working with neighbours. The neighbour at Castle Downs has actually since established some water to sprinkle on the roads that seems to be working okay. That seems to be the better option. And there's the Otter Seal as well that we've talked to you about the SDC. I'm not sure if that funding is still there, but that's something that we'd be interested in as a next kind of test, just to try and find something that's going to mitigate that impact.
Thank you, because last time we had submissions on long-term plan, there were numerous submissions around the dust, not in relation specifically to forestry, but just interested in the work that you're trying out and the success or lack of success with it.
We want to work and help our neighbours where we can, but finding something that's feasible is the tricky.
Thank you.
I'm not trying to make any statements, but were you aware that the lime aspect of fertiliser is captured under mining?
Yes, I'll remove that.
Yeah, that's good.
I was doing lime in the dolomite, I think.
Well, so there's no further questions. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So it might be a good chance to have a little bit of Alice speaking here, because it's due at 1 o'clock. So it might be a good chance to take for an early one. I'll adjourn the meeting. I'll move to the adjourn for lunch. Right, second that, councillor Menzies. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. We're back at just before 1 o'clock, please.
So you're gonna get this, model, who's done the model? You're gonna go that advice. Yeah.
Online, hopefully technology is going to behave and we can all hear each other okay. The question on our agenda is on page 151. And can you hear us all right, Alistair?
Yes, I can, thanks. Yep.
Thank you. So I'll give you 5 minutes to speak and then there'll be 5 minutes for questions from councillors afterwards. And just ready when you are.
Yeah, well, Mr. Mayor and councillors, thank you for this opportunity. I'm here at this time representing the Southland Farm Forestry Association. Our membership believes that council does need more funds for the roads. They should be from a fair and equitable collection process. And council needs to be accountable for administration of these funds and the LTNZ funds. You've heard it already today, but the existing targeted rating model is flawed because it's biased towards tonnes travelling on the roads with limited consideration for trips and kilometres, and many factors are overlooked. Additionally, and it's a big one, many inputs such as stock feed is not included. This means all tonnage related to forestry is included, while other sectors are being subsidised by forestry. The other problem is that forestry contributes high rate, the other problem is that forestry contributes high rates for a service that is not used and even sometimes not available 28 or more years later. Many foresters have no income over that period until they harvest. They must fund their costs from elsewhere. And that's significant. When you consider the rating, it's pretty hard, really, especially with the increases that are being proposed. Southland Farm Forestry do not agree that forestry is responsible for the bulk of damage to roading infrastructure. To assist with funding of roads activity, our suggestion is that high rates or contributions are made in the year of harvest. Excuse me. I lost my place. So long story short, you got money when you harvest. That would be a good time to make bigger contributions. And that could be funded managed through rates for emission in the early years and maybe contributions in the later years. We realise that rates are not only there to fund roads, so the proposal wouldn't be all or nothing. Having said that, the funds collected from us must be spent on providing relevant services and they must be fair. Some of our membership have actually withdrawn from forestry due to increasing costs and other barriers. And this is at a time when increased forestry in appropriate areas is desirable and perhaps essential to meet the many needs on a regional and national basis. These proposed increases are just one more barrier. It's unlikely that these changes will affect us other than financially. But in the years to come, our grandchildren will say, why didn't people plant more trees? And our view is that you need more timber. Trees are good for carbon sequestration and biofuel. You're not going to run your EVs on the available electricity. You're going to need other options as well. A slowdown in forestry will affect those things and more, biodiversity and water filtration, all sorts of things. Yeah, so a small block owner, 30 hectare or maybe 50, they're looking at within the next year or two, $4,000 in rates. You could say maybe half of that's for roading. Excuse me. So over 30 years, you're paying 60 grand for what? To use 5 kilometres of gravel road in a 30-year period, and then wait another 30 years. But anyway, that's what the membership has been offering up as a suggestion to your proposed changes. So, yeah, thanks for that. If you've got any questions, I can try and answer them for you.
Thanks very much, Alistair. Appreciate you taking the time to submit both orally and in paper one as well. We've had, as you may have been listening in this morning, we've had quite a forestry theme, so don't take the lack of questions as that may have already been asked by previous submitters, but I'll open up to the floor to see if there are any questions for you. Look, it looks a lot of the questions I think have been asked to previous submitters as well. So
yeah, I could understand that. Yep. Yeah.
So with that being said, I'll welcome you to put your other hat on, and you've got your personal question as well. So yeah, you're welcome to start that one.
Yeah. Well, once again, thanks for the opportunity. About myself, I'm an ex-forester now. I don't have forest anymore. I've ticked that box, and I don't really have the confidence to go further with it in future or encumber my children or grandchildren with it. I'm not sure what the councillors are looking at. There's actually 2 copies of my submission in the documents. One's a good scan, one's an email copy, which is good rendition. The other's not so good. The good one's on page 19 of that document. Yep. But anyway, fairness, you've probably heard a lot about fairness today. It's been said in council meetings that the rates process must be fair and equitable, and I don't believe that is the case. For that to be the case, the model must use valid logic, valid assumptions, and accurate data. I'm sure the other submitters have talked about the data. You can't just cherry pick data and throw it into the model. It's just not right. A lot of the data is old. The Turns report, it's actually 7 years old. The trucking fleet's moved on. They've probably covered that. The dairy 2009 dairy model, it's way out of date. It's been removed from public viewing, but council is still using it, I believe. I actually asked for, well, a group of us asked for an information request because there's so much you can't see in the model. Note number 77 on the consultation document is incorrect. Audit New Zealand or whoever your auditors are, they wouldn't know what was in there because they couldn't see it. The information was not supplied. Some was held after our request under intellectual property, which is, again, a bit of a joke, really, considering council paid to have that information sourced and presented and used in the model. You need to review it. Funding targeted rates on a tonnage basis is not meeting the needs of providing and maintaining roads. For years, council has not had the funds for roading because they won't collect the rates from all those that cause the costs. The council need more funds, but you need to collect them in a fair and equitable way. targeting damage, forestry is being targeted and other sectors are also damaging infrastructure and they're being overlooked. The elephant in the corner is the stock feed. It's not accounted for in the model, but it needs to be. As discussed with roading staff, it's not only forests damaging the infrastructure. There's a lot of agricultural uses. Tractors have been mentioned in submissions. It's not foresters acquiring gravel from the roads. It's not foresters running their tractors off the bridges damaging them. It's not the foresters overloading the bridges to the point where they've got to be closed. Customised data is available from Stats NZ. You guys have the means to buy the data exactly what you want. You've been challenged on the data that's in the model, and some of it is actually available from Stats NZ, which contradicts what's in the model. Inequity of funding. The small forests are being loaded with rates over $71 a hectare a year, and that's going to increase. Many people supporting the HV related increases don't know that only some of the costs are targeted and included. I made this submission today because this is all not right, it's wrong. In 20 years, nothing changes before the adoption of the plan, and unfortunately ratepayers, or forestry ratepayers, will be paying an extra 63% this year and more next year. It's just not right, and it should be reviewed. So if there's any questions that I'm able to help you with, I'll be happy to answer them. But thank you for this opportunity anyway.
Thank you, Alistair. Really appreciate that once again. Do we have any questions from the board? Councillor Duffy.
Alistair, what are you referring to with the taking gravel off roads?
I believe farmers call it dropping the bucket. I made a complaint a number of years ago and had the problem fixed. The culprit was going to be charged for it if they didn't fix it themselves. When it actually was repaired, the gravel looked remarkably like the stuff that was on the roads. And I thought, well, it must have been the council, or else they must have got it from the same place the council got it. That's what I'm referring to. And there's been incidences of it recently. One thing I would say, I'd like to compliment our grader driver. He's doing a great job at the moment. The roads have never looked better where we are. So it's not all bad, you know. The good maintenance goes a long way.
Thanks, Alistair. Good to have some positive feedback there too. Are there any other questions from the board? There being none, I'll thank you very much for your two submissions there, Alistair, and we'll be in touch. Appreciate you taking the time once again.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome to stay online and continue to watch the other ones.
I'd love to. I've got work to do, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your good work.
Cheers, thank you. Right, next up, we're running slightly early, but do we have Ian Smith in the room? Yes, we do. So this is on page 175.
Page 175.
Thank you for coming along, Ian.
Thank you. And this is only a minor issue, but it's a process issue I want to talk about. And I'd like to thank the Mayor and councillors for the opportunity to speak. I'd also like to thank the staff who I've had communication with over the time for their input. The first point I really want to make, and it's not to do with the local hall, is that the region rates, and I just say, you know, the region's hurting. And the more the rates go up, the more people we're going to have in arrears, and I'll just leave it at that. So specifically, I want to talk about the letter to the Portgrove residents re the closing of the local hall. And I'm not sure whether it's a similar letter that goes out to every other hall. And I'm a Waimahaka resident. I'm on the Waimahaka Hall Committee, but this is a personal submission. And with the Fort Rose Hall closed, there was an arbitrary decision made about joining with Topanui and Waimahaka, and a letter was sent out to the residents. Now, one letter was sent to the residents they deemed that would join the Topanui Hall, and the one letter was sent out to residents that were deemed to join the Waimahaka Hall. But those letters didn't give the options in them. And within your LT plan, you are asking specifically at number 6, do you agree with the options? No residents ever got a submission form, and if you read the submission, read the letter to them, it suggests you can comment on the long-term plan, but this says nothing about specific things between the boundaries and option 6. There was no submission form included with the letter, and I thought that should have gone if it was gone with it when it was specifically targeted to that area. And we had residents from Fort Rose that were deemed to join Topanui approach us at Waimahaka to join our hall committee. So we started doing some investigation into it quite a bit earlier, thought the Waimahaka. And then from then, we're told it was going to the long-term plan. So when the letter came out, we still had a ring or two from one or two of the local residents and saying, can you make hydro of this? So we followed through with it. So, but what I'm saying is process that all options should be on one letter, should designate, and during the long-term plan, send them a copy of the long-term plan, because there's a lot of people in like Fort Rose don't have printers, don't have scanners. So, and I understand a few have delivered submissions to the council office. So that's basically what I want to talk about on that. And it was nothing to do with the decision, it's just about the process. So the two other things I'd like to mention, and this is by the by, you might be working right. We've got a new Incorporated Society Act coming in. All halls are on rated areas through the council. We now must keep a members list and a hall committee of our members. I dare say that's ratepayers. We must keep 7 years record beyond when they resign. So I presume that's when they sell a house. So has the council considered how they're going to deal with the halls and providing that information when through the Information Act of giving us that, because incorporated societies, so we need to have a discussion of how that's going to go together, and we're starting to look at that. And two other things: freedom camping and using all the facilities and toilets. Surely there can be a charge put on by the council, like the Motor Caravan Association does with its own camping sites. And I'd like the council to investigate that further, especially the Fort Rose Domain area. And there's other areas around the place. We have to do it when we go anywhere else in the world, so why can't we activate it in New Zealand? I don't know what the law says. And the third thing comment I'd like to make is I travel the Southern Stream route quite often. We've had two new sets of lights set in, with flashing lights set in, one at Gorge Road and one at Tisbury. And I was trying to understand that why sometimes they activate and sometimes they don't. And why sometimes they go for 1 second of an activation and why they don't. So I'm not sure it's your jurisdiction or not, but it is a concern to me, these lights and these figures are sitting. Grandchildren counted going through Gorge Road the other day. There's 28 different signs in Gorge Road and there's 14 houses. So it's all the way. But anyway, that's basically where I'm at. So.
No, thank you for that, Ian. Quite a number of points you've raised in there, and some questions as well. Just a question in terms of the different hall boundaries. Are you suggesting that people would like to have choice in which hall they relate to?
I think a number of people submitted because they don't want to take the choice to go to Topanui, they want to go to Waimahaka, and I think a number of people submitted. There's a number of absentee landowners or house owners in that area, being the winter, they're not in communication with the local residents. So it is very difficult for them to understand that they had a choice if it wasn't in the letter.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the floor? Councillor Davis?
That's just your point about freedom camping, Ian.
Yeah.
Are you aware that under law, if there's charge for a freedom camping area, the facilities have to be up to camping ground standards?
Well, how does Motor Caravan Association get away with it?
Well, I think it's a private organisation with their own grounds.
Well, I'm quite sure there's people within this organisation that can have some good thoughts about setting up something like that for the council. I'll just throw the challenge out.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, well, thank you very much for your submission and all that. Good for your attention, much appreciated. Next up, we have, we've got Kath Oakley, and this is on page 36 of your agenda. So I believe Kath might be in the room, hopefully. Welcome along, Kath. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good afternoon, the Mayor and the Council. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Chair of the Riverton Swimming Bath Committee, and I'd like to make a submission that the SDC allocation rate should actually be increased. June 2013 was $20.70. 23, it was $21.02, an increase of 32 cents over 10 years for a valuable community asset we think is negligible. Now, we know rate increases are a really sensitive issue for you, but we think we can make a good case. All our costs have increased: wages, energy, chemicals, you name it. We're well supported by the Riverton community, who recognise the value of the pool, and we do get donations from Lions, Rotary, Thornbury Rural, and even Meals on Wheels. And they're appreciated, but we can't rely on them. We do supply or apply for grant aid from the Community Board, from the Off-Shop, Patty Road Trust, for big new items like pool covers, or last year, a new platform for preschool children. But these are targeted specific items. Daily routine maintenance like fire protection and a phone bill can't come from those funds. And we know for good management, everyday costs should really be met from everyday income. Now, the pool's really well used, 6 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, all age groups, babies to great grannies. The swimming club, Riverton and Thornbury primary schools, Aparima College, aquarobics, specialist swimming lessons, childcare, private bookings, and key holders. Nearly 16,000 swims last year. We open to the public on Saturday and Sunday and every day in school holidays. But those sessions we regard as our return to the community for the rates allocation, because they're uneconomic. We pay more for the wages for the supervisors than we ever get in return. Swimming's got many benefits of all sorts: health, relaxation, fun, enjoyment. New Zealand's got a real beach and water culture, fishing, swimming, boating. We're surrounded here by lakes, rivers, beautiful sea, loads of duck ponds, and last year, 90 preventable deaths, plus a lot of other near misses. Water New Zealand says every child should be taught at school to float, to move in the water. The Ministry of Education actually makes it mandatory, says that every child by year 6 should be taught basic aquatic skills. But the Department of Education duck out of providing school pools in all areas. So it's vital that there's a well-resourced community pool to back it up. Last year, we did have a profit of $9,000. Great. But to be financially sustainable, we do need to have spare money in the coffers for when the boiler breaks down and we need emergency parts. Excuse me. We need emergency parts quickly and we don't need to wait for them. We also need to be some spare cash to be doing planning for routine maintenance for the future. Too easy to deal with immediate issues and forget to upgrade equipment. We need a new auto dosing system, we need a pool cleaner, and health and safety requirements, regulations about water testing are going up all the time. We know we're not compliant with provisions for disabled access, and insurance at the moment is only for public liability and not building. We've got a really good committee of volunteers who contribute many hours already, cleaning, painting, gardening, maintenance, managing the bookings and the keys. We do have a fund of 120,000, but that was very specifically raised over a number of years for a new roof. There was a big storm 6 years ago, part of the roof blew off, was repaired, but we were always told this will last you 6 or 7 years, and that time's up. So we're in negotiations now with roofers and surveyors for a new one. But we need to be doing this planning for our long-term sustainability, including a new boiler, I guess. Now, the SDC support many community halls, open spaces, playgrounds, cycle trails. They're great facilities, but often they're only used by a limited section of the community, and often only when good weather. We've got 137 key holders. In the 2018 census, listed 702 occupied houses for Riverton. So nearly 1/5 of the households are using the pool. If you included all the children who go to school, swimming lessons, private lessons, and the public sessions, it's a much higher proportion of community are using this service. So we can quantify our usage, feel the level of service provided meets the expectations of our customers. Finally, I looked at the rate support for other swimming pools, and my previous gentleman can't follow the rationale for the differential rates. Tuatapere gets $7.40 for their pool. A Tautau, similar number of residential properties, gets $32. It's a mistake not to make regular increases, because when there's a big jump, it makes people cross. And I'd like to suggest that you could increase our rates by at least $5 this year, $5 the following year, and then perhaps 1 or 2 each year to keep up with inflation, to maintain this valuable asset for the community. And if there did happen to be any spare in your budget at the end, the grant towards our roof would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just it'll be a good time to acknowledge the work that you and your committee do as volunteers to keep that vital community asset going. So thank you on behalf of this. Are you aware that the differences for those different pools is due to the community board, like that, so that each community board can set its own local rates for the pools for each of those areas?
Yes, I guess there must be some difference in that, but I did apply to our Aparima community board, and it's recommended it's come back to your direction.
Thank you, because that was my second question. I'm in your submission there, so you've spoken to them. Was that quite recently? Was it to the Aparima board?
No, about 4 months ago.
Right. Are there any other questions from the floor? Councillor Duff?
So does your committee actually own the pool?
That's a very difficult. Yes, technically we do. Yes. You know, we run it, but it was built by community subscription, 1965, for $67,000. It was offered to the council in the wisdom at the time. They turned it down and said, no, you could keep maintaining or looking after it with a community committee. I'm really not sure about the legality of whether we actually own it. Certainly the council doesn't own it. We pay rates on it at the moment for property, but.
Any further questions? Looks like there's none, and I'd just like to acknowledge your very detailed submission that you've written as well, answering all the other questions. So thank you very much for taking the time to feedback. We really value your feedback, so thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Keith. So our next submitter, we have is Mary Hagan, which is on page 244. Welcome, Mary. Thank you.
I'm a bit nervous about this, Mayor Rob and councillors. I'm trying to cover quite a few things that I've put in my submission. I've just run down and picked what the boxes, which I think. And so, unfortunately, you may not like what I'm going to be saying, but it is a general consensus of a lot of people I talk about. So it's not just me. What I'm going to be saying. So, and this is probably why you haven't got that many submissions. I've only heard it's about 310 submissions, which is not a lot for the amount of people that's in this area, which I'm quite disappointed about, really. So I'm going to start now. So, yeah, I'm afraid the truth hurts, but SDC is out of control. It's time to rein in your costs. We see it time and time again, cost blowouts. But they just pass it on to the ratepayers. Prime example, I'm just going to quote a few of them. Prime example was mismanagement of projects. I'm going to be talking about the Te Anau Airport, Manapori, because that's one thing I did put a submission on. Blowout, cost-wise, was 3.2 million. It ended up at 7.8 million. And they managed to chuck all those costs over to the ratepayers, $179 per ratepayer, reducing later on to $143. Now, we've been brought the brunt of it. It's a great asset for all of Southland. It's been named as a strategic asset, and it costs over $300,000 a year to actually run. And the last 3 years with COVID, it's been a massive loss. I'm just going to pick myself up here for a minute. It looks like you actually are doing something about it with the employment of Great South, but it's at the ratepayers' cost again. $170,000 is being paid to Great South. Now, so far, I can see they're doing a damn good job. So, fingers crossed, because it's one of my pet projects and I've got a lot of support for it. As long as they don't ping the people that are there supporting the airport now, because that's what I feel that will happen, is we've got 4 operators, helicopter operators around there that actually use the area and don't contribute one a bit apart from their rates. So it's not very fair because they've got a freehold property that they use and they're not using the district one. So us few people have got to pay for it. So it's got to be strategically looked at. I even feel that, you know, as I said, that Southland District Control is out of control, but Environment Southland is as well. The costs involved with the two, I feel that these two organisations should be one and work together because there's a lot of duplications and a lot of things. 200 staff and the other outfit and 140 odd vehicles. I don't know what you guys have to, but it's probably very similar. The new government has demanded that all the departments reduce their staff by 15%. Now it's time for you guys to do the same. Like, I'm retired from farming now, but I'm farming background. And I hate to be farming at the moment with 40% extra costs, plus 40% reduction in incomes. Come on now, it is your time to start doing something. And look inside yourself. Look at your staff. Look at everything. It's got to get more efficient. Just things that I see going through. We have the water scheme, which I was a part of in the Te Anau Basin. They're on, I think it's 9 schemes now. I'm just not exactly sure. I've been out of it for 3 years. But it's $50,000 for a resource consent for each scheme. It's just crazy. You know, this could be done with $100 and a document and a stamp. Like, it's everybody's right to take water. Just because it's a scheme, it gets really pinged really hard. Lots of little things like that.
It's a bit like, I see lots of waste of money being spent on playgrounds over and over again with different compliances. I was involved in a playground, making one up, did it really cheaply, brilliant playground in Pukamari. Did it for a fraction of the cost, and now they've changed the rules straight after. We had to put plastic mat down. Now it's gone back to bark. So it comes round and round in circles. All these little things really mount up and they sort of get out of control. We've only got another couple of things to go here. Oh yeah, I'm really concerned why you guys have a PR department. You know, you see your ads on the support the district council. Who are you fighting against? We don't want to hear all that. Why don't you put that money and make us feel a bit better? Not your staff. They could probably not be there at all. As I said, I've just covered before, this is in the bottom pieces, that we've got 40% reduction in farmers' incomes and costs have gone up. So it's time for you guys to actually now tighten your belt and cut your costs, because I agree with most things. We've got to carry on with a lot of our expenses. The roading is very, very important to me. We've got a big network. You've just got to lobby this government more. What really irked me when I read through your big document, real glossy, I don't know what that cost. Bloody a hell of a lot anyway. And yeah, they said you guys blame everything on Three Waters. I'd like to say bullshit, but I'm going to say it. It's not that. You had the staff there, right? You employed them. Why don't you collaborate with other councils and amalgamate your staff? You've got Invercargill, you've got Poor. You know, there's trouble going on in those councils too. So you some of the guys seem to be not too bad, but your costs are out of control. Amalgamate. Try to do things properly better and get rid of some of the staff that are dead wood. One of the things that really irks me is health and safety on roads. 10% of your cost of that product is of actually fixing those roads. 10% of that cost goes to putting up cones and taking them down again. I'm sick of it. You know, my wife just about goes nuts every time I go there. We've got more cones and lights and 4 people on a small roadworks. We don't need that. We do not need it. It's crazy. It's about your speed limits too. We've got to keep traffic moving and everything. So you take a look back at history.
So if I was to interrupt you for 2 ticks, you've cut into your question time, so there's about 2 minutes left, so you can carry on, but there won't be time for questions afterwards, so it's up to you.
One little thing to say. No, you don't have to answer the questions, although I want to ask you one question. You know, the Roman Empire was running the world. What happened to it? It completely collapsed through compliances and everything. Okay. One thing I said to Cameron as he went past there before, I'd like to ask him a question, but it might be more pertinent because he didn't really want to. I didn't actually tell him what it was, but I'd like to. And I've had this been pointed to me from quite a few different people. We would actually like to know what the cost it is to run this council in black and white. What does it cost to run? We want to see the breakdown. Where have you actually pointed out where you're going to save costs? And we want to see this in black and white. And you just can't carry on and on and on forever. We want to see some results. You know, we still want services. We'd like them. So thank you very much. And sorry about going over time, but I've got off the chair.
No need to apologize.
But I'd actually like some replies to the and see something in paper on the cost of running this thing. And I'm not the only one. I've got a lot of people behind me. Okay.
Well, we've got a minute left for questions, so I'll ask a very quick one myself, and I'll open up to the floor. So, are you aware that the financial statements of council come out quite regularly? There is that kind of oversight in a lot of our council meetings.
So I'd like to see them too, because we're in the dark most of the time.
That's all available publicly.
Yeah, yes, but we've got to go on online, and I'm not an online person.
We can send you a copy of.
Yeah, I love that. But you know, I just wanted to make you councillors aware that you've got to start cutting costs. And I'm it's very, very important because, you know, I'll give you an analysis on the farming background. And by God, they've done it tough. I've had about 6 ups and downs in my farming lifetime when you don't know which way you're going, you know. You guys, you get a paycheck comes out and it gets, you know, well, inflation adjusted every year. Sorry, that's what's like the time.
No, thank you very much, Maria. Appreciate you coming along.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
I look forward to seeing some information.
Yeah, let's go. Right, so the next up, thanks for this one, the place again. Next we have Dan Tate, which is on page 220 of your agenda. We have Jan Tate. Not yet. Are we running a little bit?
Yes. Vehicle just pulled in.
If we have Wendy Holding here, we can, so this one is on page 368.
Right. I'm Wendy and this is Tom.
Page 368.
Yep. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to his submission. I've written it down, so hopefully I can get it in 5 minutes. Firstly, would like to address the elephant in the room, which is in the last 5 years, we've had an increase in our overall rates of 46.5%. They went from 2,930 to 4,292. And as I'm speaking, I'd like to sort of mull over that and consider what your contribution has been for us with that increase. So just to break it down, our water services management, you wrote quite a bit there. We did not propose either option. We pay a district rate for water charge, which we get a trickle feed at best and none in the middle of summer. So that increase has gone in the last 5 years from $444 to $662 for nothing. Now, about 6 years ago, I spoke on the 10-year plan and they told me that they'd do something about it. Well, that's a 49.2% increase and we haven't got anything further done about it. We pay for our own infrastructure. We have to pay for our tank, pipes, pumps, collection of the water. And the trickle supply we could get from in the good months is inadequate to run a household of 2 people. We can't turn on a shower. It's quite shameful, really. We provide stormwater runoff from the Milford Road into our property, and we have no stormwater service facilities serviced by the Southland District Council. When the subdivision was made, the developer had to pay for the stormwater and there's been no upgrade or anything since. We also have to provide our own sewerage, which is everybody has to have a septic field now. So that's a cost of like about 30 grand. So the water services charges are far from fair and equitable in the Southland District. We propose user pays for services, including metering of watering into a property and wastewater out. This is how much of the country is running now and will be future-proofing the services for the Southland District. This will also enable leakage monitoring and control from the Southland District Council and financial control of water rates for the ratepayer. So if you're having too long a shower, your water bill's too high, you'd have a shorter shower. Please note too, we don't understand this, but our property has gone from rural lifestyle to semi-urban. So I'll let you dwell on that and tell me why that is and what improvements we've received to be semi-urban. As far as the roading goes, we find a rates increase of 70% over 5 years for our property. That's quite hard to swallow. We've noted the roading was provided by the developer originally and has received little to no maintenance by the Southland District Council. Lichen covers much of the road, eating into the surface and in places it's fully across the road. You may argue that the increase in roading rates has been due to property values, CVs increasing, because a lot of your factors are multiplied by the CV value. Where's that money gone? Our property went up because somebody bought a section over the road for 800,000. So all our properties went up over 500,000. So where does this extra money go in the council? Because you're multiplying it by your factor and we're paying more. There's no more people, no more cars, no more services or anything like that. You're getting this extra money. So I'd be interested to see where that money goes in your budget. So I'd like a copy of your budget to print out as well. I'd like to also say a CV is only what your property might have sold for. It does not increase people or stress on roads or anything like that. The roading budget have increased 70%, but the service has declined in our area. We note a road has been closed just down Branksholme here or Lockhill because the bridge was not fixed. So the direct route from Branksholme to Winton is now obstructed and it's never going to open again by the looks of it. Again, in roading, we propose that user pays. Every vehicle should pay road user charges. Every vehicle, every car, every motorcycle, everything. And if that's not enough to increase your budget, then maybe tolls are necessary on roads because the people that use the roads should pay for the roads. Then we've got control again. So if we're coming down here to Invercargill and we're doing it too often, we can put our trips together and come once and pay one toll rather than 10 tolls, so we can actually control our budget. As far as the glass recycling goes, we decided that if you're drinking so much or you've got lots of glass waste, then there should be an option to drop it off at the dump. We've already got glass recycling in our rubbish bin. The Te Aneo Airport, we agree that it's an asset to the whole community. So we think that 30% across the whole of the Southern District would be a good idea. We believe developers should complete all their development costs, and if the council can't upkeep the development after that, then the people shouldn't be paying to the council their rates. They could use that money and upgrade. Supporting retention and use of Maori land, no, we don't agree with this. It falls into racism, and I feel quite confident saying that. I'm sitting here 25% Maori, so I don't think I'm racist in saying that. I think it's racist that the council looks at it differently from everybody. And the one thing I asked Rob Scott to send me was this breakdown on where all the money goes in handouts from the council. And we actually don't think that in this difficult climate financially that you should be handing out any money. But I can only talk about Fiordland Community Board because I don't feel that I could talk about anything else. There is a list of things that you've donated to, like a fun day, a Christmas celebration, festival costs, Waitangi Charitable Trust. There's only about 3 on that list that benefit the whole community. So where do we get to? On page 31, page 32 and 31 of your booklet, I'm going to run out of time, but I want you to look at this because I think it's very important. You have done a breakdown of what the rates increases are going to be around the district. And I note in Fiordland, in Te Aneo, they've gone blue, which is the highest increase in rates. They have a rubbish bin, water supplied and a toilet. In the rural area, it's in blue, the highest rate, 1,500 to 1,800. Not even all the rural area gets a rubbish bin. Yet in Woodlands, you're on the lowest rate and they get the rubbish bin. So what are you providing that's different for Fiordland that the rates have to be in the higher category? And turning the page backwards, I'd just like to say that this graph that shows the proposed rates change 2024, 2034 is rubbish because you do this plan every 3 years, you renew this plan. So the last 3 years we've had a 36.6 increase in our rates increase in their rates. And in this one, we're going to have a bit similar in the first 3 years, and then you're going to make another plan here, and we're going to be back up. This is, I would say the word, but it starts with B and S. This is just rubbish. How are you trying to prove that you're doing something properly? And I agree with the man earlier. It's time that you were fiscally prudent. You're not Grant Robertson. You know, you need to pull your own belts in. You need to look at the needs of the people, not the wants of the people. And I know this is different to what some other submitters have said, like about the pool and everything, but there are people that can't pay their rates. And did you know that a pensioner, a quarter of their money that they get in a year goes to their rates? That's now. And next year, rural are going to have a 17% increase, and town areas are going to have a 13.6% increase. So that's going to be more like a third of their, and by the end of the 3 years, it's going to be about a third of their income is going to go on their rates. And what for? We haven't seen any change. So that's what we'd like to say. Anything else, Tom?
Thank you. You have come into your question time, so I appreciate your passionate submission there. So thank you very much.
I would like you to really take it to account and think about your belts.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we have Jan Tate may have arrived.
Yes.
Hello, thank you for agreeing to listen to me speak. After I was listening to Wendy, I was thinking I better put a timer on my phone.
There's one here that you can right there, so it's
Nice.
I won't start yet, because you haven't started.
Hey, good afternoon and thank you for your time today. So my name is Jan Tate. I live at 411 Waimatupu Flat Road, which is out in Western Southland. I did on my submission cover a lot of things, but I'm not going to talk to all of those. I'm here for one reason only, on behalf of the Otahuti community. So our request is that, my submission on behalf of the community, and hopefully some other people in the community wrote as well, is to do with the new hall rating boundary for former Otahuti ratepayers. So our request is to oppose the proposal to rate the residents of the Otahuti community, and so that was the former ratepayers, for a neighbouring hall. So our key reason for opposing this is that our area doesn't need a hall, as demonstrated by our decision to close the old one. So we don't want to be compelled to pay a rate for a facility that we have no interest in using. So the background to this is back in August 23, we had our last public meeting, and in the lead up to the meeting, the SDC staff had indicated that the ratepayers may be required to contribute to a neighbouring hall, but it wasn't set in concrete. So we discussed this idea at length with the community. We had a meeting, and the community came to the unanimous conclusion that it was against what the goals and what our beliefs were. And so we passed a motion, and the motion was that the Otahuti Hall community don't want to support another hall, as there was no support for the one that we had, and hence it was sold and closed in 2022. So the background to that is that they didn't come to the conclusion lightly. So back in 2018, we called a special general meeting to close the hall, and the executive on that night was resigning, and their argument was that the hall wasn't being used. It was still in good order, but nobody was using it. So no one was keen to share the burden of running the hall. Financially, the hall was okay. Our rates were covering the interest and the insurance and electricity. But as I said, nobody was using it. So on the night, Clark McKenzie, he took on the role of chairperson, and I took on the role of secretary treasurer. because we'd had a vote in the community and people voted to keep it open. But with the proviso that 5 years later, we would revisit their decision. And in the meantime, that we do a lot of promotions. So we set up a Facebook page, website, told everyone about the hall, trying to get people to use it. So then as time went on, we were getting like one person a year using it. And it's not really sustainable. And we had good money in the account, but why would you spend good money on a resource that's not being used? And so Clark was most concerned about the electrical wiring. I was concerned about the health and safety, because there's lots of things. You've got to keep a building going forward. And so we had another public meeting, and so that was like 5 years after the first, voted, got everyone to vote in the community. And this time, the community time had gone on and they'd had time to think about it, and it still wasn't being used. They made the decision again unanimously to close it. What we did was a local farmer bought it, and we got good money for it. So that money was distributed firstly to any local organisations, and then to neighbouring organisations, and then to provincial-wide organisations. None of that money went to another hall because nobody saw the need to do that. The nature of the communities in rural areas have changed. The way people socialise and get together, it's all different. And big old, our hall was a beautiful hall. We had the Scottish country dancers used it for many years. Then after COVID, they realised that all their members lived in Riverton, so they moved that to Riverton. So we lost the one tenant that we did have. People like comfortable chairs, nice warm heating, hence why we're in this room here, not out in that big hall out there. So I think people these days probably go to a golf club or a rugby club or somewhere else rather than our hall. So we would like you to reconsider this document that you sent out and support us, and that we canvassed the community quite, it's been a long process, and we were fully in consultation with everyone. And so we'd like you to make the decision that we don't need to be rated for another hall because we weren't using the one that we had. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Just a quick question for me, and then I'll hand over the floor. So the community aren't going to likely use any of the neighbouring halls?
No. So our community runs kind of sort of Drummond way. It's sort of a narrow part. And I noticed that on your suggestion and remapping, you've actually suggested that they use the Wainoa Hall. Well, most of those people have never been in the Wainoa Hall because it's not their area. And when I talk to them, they say, well, they'll probably be more likely to use like the rugby club because there's a good facility there. So, or they'd probably go a Tadau way. And then the lower end, like where I am, would be probably more likely to use perhaps the Waimatoku or the Thornbury Hall. But then Thornbury, you own Thornbury, and you're struggling to get enough. Don't worry, I did have my children's 21st and weddings in halls around the neighbourhood, but yeah, they're just an obsolete thing these days, really. And as a committee, we thought it would be a bit negligent of us actually to pour good money after good money into a resource. And so we've distributed the money very fairly through the community. So everyone's pretty happy with that, really. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the floor? That's not right.
What about
Thank you. You haven't missed anything. I just want, if you could state for the record, what was the amount of proceeds that the community after the closure of the hall chose to?
So, thank you. So there was 150,000, which was lovely. So 50,000 went to the Otahuti Tennis Club because the Otahuti Tennis Club is the only thing that's still operating in Otahuti. So it's nice that it gets a name. We managed to get a sign because when the hall left, and do you know where Otahuti is?
Yeah.
Good. Well, you'll know now, because now we've got a wee sign that says that that's Otahuti. Blink and you'll miss it. 50,000 went to lots of different community organisations. So there was the St John's in Atautau, the hospice, the golf club, the bowls club, rugby club in Drummond, the Wainoa bowling club, just like a big distribution. We also saved at 50,000 for a book. So at the moment, members of the committee are compiling a book. So we've asked members of the community to contribute their story because we want to, when the hall goes, there's nothing left to know to him. And so how do you capture all those stories and the history of the place? So we've saved 50 to go towards the printing of that. Some people said, oh, you can get it printed cheaper in China, but that defeats the purpose of keeping the money in the local community. And so it will be printed in Southland. It's a Southland thing. And we've had really good uptake with that and people really keen to contribute to that. Yeah.
That's right. Thanks, Jen. One question, have you actually gone to staff asking if you legally have to pay a hall rate?
So we've been to the Takatimu Wallace Community Board. And yes, we've actually found out that not everyone has to do that. So I think what happened was we'd spoken to the council, to someone in council, and they told us that we didn't have to be rated for a hall. Yeah. And then this came out much to our surprise because we thought we had it sorted. But what happens is it looks like there was a belief within the council that you should be rated for a hall. Doesn't matter where you live in the district, that you should be rated for a hall. But there has been some precedents. Other halls have closed and they haven't been re-rated to somewhere else. So it looks like there's no hard and fast. Yeah. Like custom and practice is a bit dodgy, I think. It just seems. So I thought if I came and presented, I might have a good chance of getting custom practice our way.
Thanks for coming and presenting, and I contributed to the OHIP box, so all the best with that. Oh, yeah. You? No,
oh, thank you. Yes, I have been your contribution.
Okay.
Cool. And yeah, there were other submissions as well. Supporting what you were saying, just
good.
Really so yeah, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your time. Thanks for presenting.
Okay, so our next submitter is Dan Moynihan, and he's coming in 2:30 and he's on a scripted for that time. So might be a good chance to have a break and have a coffee, cup of tea, and we'll come back in just before 2:20. So I'll once again move from the chair that we adjourn the meeting until about 2:25. Second by Councillor Menzies. All those in favour, please say aye. No, getting up. She's going.
It's really hot.
Hello.
Yeah, g'day. Are we all back online? Welcome back, everyone. Welcome along, Dan. So just for the purposes of the team, it's 61 of your agenda for the first submission for Dan Moynihan. For some reason we can't see you on Zoom on the screen, but I can hear that you're there, Dan. So we're going to give you 5 minutes for your submission and then 5 minutes for questions.
Okay. Okay, well, firstly, can I start or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, firstly, thanks very much for taking the time to have a listen to our submission. I'm currently travelling. I'm in an airport at the moment, so would have loved to have been there. Just the timing wasn't right. So part of our ownership group, we have our own investments, domestic, New Zealand, Southland money, and I just wanted to try and point out today what the proposed rating means for us and our family and our investments, and I just wasn't sure if everyone just understood what it could actually mean to us as a local company, but B also the entire Southland forestry industry. So I'll just make a start and just read through my submission. So this is on behalf of the Moynihan family, shareholding of Treebilly. So when we first looked at this, I've got there what we understand. We've got no question that there's more funding is required for the SDC roading infrastructure network, that heavy vehicles do cause damage to the SDC roading network, but in saying this, all vehicle movements do. that much of the information in calculating the proposed rates, significant assumptions, we think are outdated, flawed, wrong. I was quite emotional when I wrote this. I said embarrassing and loaded against their land use, forestry, and their livelihoods. The Southern Otago forestry industry operates in a system that has wood travelling primarily from Otago to Southern to our mills and ports, with volumes ranging up to around 200,000 tonne per annum. For us, under this proposed structure, bearing in mind I wrote this before the amendment was made, it came out about halfway through the consultation period. 400% proposed rate increase in 4 years is enough for us to stop investing in Southland. That's what we think we understand. What we don't understand is why the SDC would propose this without first talking to us, and how it's come to about to think it's appropriate to reconfigure the forestry assumptions for the model and not investigating and updating other land use model settings. With such a huge change in our cost to land use, why was industry not invited to the table early so this could be worked through practically? How the Otago volume has been calculated coming into Southland, I understand the problems with that, but it does make up a significant portion. And why the SDC would think it was appropriate to rate our sector out of business while that sector provides significant other benefits to Southland. We significantly reduce the nutrient losses off the land and water quality improvement. The forests make up a significant portion of Southland's carbon reduction plan, which gets modelled by our local government authorities. They're collecting our carbon data and using that as part of their carbon neutrality plan. And we provide significantly higher employment in the region per hectare than dry stock farming. So we go to the next page. This is a property we own at the base of the Mokarita Valley before you go over the Tarcope Hill. We purchased this property. We sold the house and the best of the land off to a young guy who's now got a family in the region, so he's actually supporting the local community. We think we're quite responsible in doing this. When we first bought that property, the SDC rates were 4,700. We planted it. We went into 2023. We got put on the differential rating system, was 9,700. But under the proposal, and again, I'll just point out that this was calculated before the change that came through in the submission. By 2026, we're going to 21,000, and to 2027, we're going to 24,000. So for us as a landowner and our family, we were astounded that our rates were going to go up 400%. And for us, it was sort of a wow moment. The proposed rate increase is primarily made up by using the differential rating for land use and we think it's been a fundamentally flawed process that has been used to create it. If these proposed rates are implemented, then our company and many others will have to consider turning our forests into permanent carbon sinks, which none of us want to do, by the way. This would mean no harvesting and associated use of heavy haulage vehicles for the forests. It would also have a reduction in employment by around $1 million in wages, and Southland would lose about 15 mil in GDP. In closing off that point around permanent, this is one of the last options we want to entertain, as their family's been undertaking production forestry for 4 generations. We go on to the next page. We spent, we're absolutely no experts in this and what we're about to talk about, but I put some of my smartest guys on some of what we thought were the assumptions and did some digging. And we think there's really big holes in the process. We think, I understood that the log configuration has been spoken to today. We think there could be up to 200,000 tonne there. And then we start looking at the other land uses and how they're calculated. We think there's probably 130,000 tonne in egg for it, not there. 150,000 tonne in winter grazing off farm. 250,000 in supplement feed for dairy, not being calculated. We don't understand the tourism calculation. It's actually calculated on what seems to be a very small number, but when you look at the tourism numbers, they're quite high. We tried to follow it. We don't understand it, but we think there's a big hole there as well. And when you actually start accumulating all these together, it becomes a significant number. Summary and closing. I hope the SDC decision makers can take the time to ask the questions on the above. We're absolutely no expert in other land uses, but we feel there's enough open evidence to suggest that there are some serious questions to answer. We also think that there could be considerably more questions to be asked to make this process credible and fair for all ratepayers of the Southland District Council. My closing statement is around this, if we start getting charged $120 a hectare, I'd be happy to pay it if all other ratepayers would pay it as well. You guys would collect over 100 million per annum and would all have the best roads and probably infrastructure in the country.
Thank you for that, Dan, and appreciate the detail you put into both your written and your oral submission. You won't have heard this morning because you've been travelling. We've had quite a number of the forestry sector submitting already, so don't take a lack of questions as a lack of interest in your submission. There may still be some from the floor, but yeah, just giving you a bit of a heads up. We've had quite a lot of forestry related discussion already today, so some of the questions have already been answered.
Yeah, well,
sorry.
Just on that, we sort of everyone. This is probably the good thing to come out of all this is the forest owners have actually, and the managers have actually got together and put a little bit of time and effort to try and put their case forward. We probably haven't had that ever before, so if there's good to come from bad, that's it.
Well, no, thanks, Dan. Do we have any questions for Dan from the floor? Councillor Buffett.
Hi, Dan. I presume you're aware that we found a mistake a couple of weeks ago that has been altered. That was after you made your submission, I guess. What difference has that made, or do you know what difference that's made?
I didn't have time to recalculate it. We were sort of running around. There's no question I'll bring it back. I don't think it will bring it back as much as realigning everyone else's.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? There being none, I'll ask you to put your other hat on, and you've got a second submission to speak to, so I'll reset your timer, and you can start again if you like. Thanks, Dan.
Okay, thank you.
Which is on page 200 of our agenda.
Yeah. So the hat I'm now wearing is for on behalf of Inca Investments Limited. They are the investment arm of the IKEA Group, a large company from overseas. I think there's not a lot of point of me going through the specific lines around trucks, other land uses, configurations. I'm sure you've heard enough of that today, but Inca just wanted to make sure that they were there to try and support the forest owners. They're tied up in various regions around the country, and I'm pretty much taking their submission as read.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So you do want to open up for questions now on that one? But you want to open up for questions on that one now, Dan? Or?
Yeah, sure, sorry.
Yeah, no, and just a comment, and I've mentioned some of the other forestry submitters as well, acknowledging the amount of work that's got into providing data, not just saying that there's a problem, but actually providing a lot of substance to back that up. So yeah, I appreciate that in your submission as well. Are there any further questions for Dan? I think a lot of the questions have already been asked earlier, Dan, so yeah, there's probably more
Could I ask one?
Yeah, certainly, councillor.
Oh, this has nothing to do with roading at all. Do you people do any work on pest control or in your holdings?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I actually got a question on that the other day. We've killed, 12 months to the end of May, or it might have been to the end of June, we'd killed 7,600, over 2,000 deer, a bunch of possums, hundreds and hundreds of hares. Yeah, we think we've done a pretty good job, to be honest.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you for that, Dan. I'll cancel that, Brian.
Just one question, Dan. You mentioned that you're not clear or you don't understand how tourism is being treated. I wonder, has your group or those you represent, have they done any work on how they think tourism should be treated?
No, we didn't. We thought the weight volume was low. I'm happy with it's not for me to decide how the calculation was. We were just passing comment that we thought there was significantly more tourists getting around Southland, and if you divided it by the numbers and times it by the factor that they had there, it came up with a significantly larger number. But the number was so different, we actually started questioning whether we actually understood the formula at all, to be honest.
Right, because I'd be interested in whatever work you have done if you could pass it on, but it's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we've got some information there. And probably my closing thing is with the forestry companies all together, there's probably a really good opportunity to engage with these guys and kind of probably get all this, try to figure it out, you know.
Yep.
I'm sure everyone's pretty keen to try, and everyone just wants equity in the system, to be honest. And I understand the use guys. If you actually look at the forestry ecosystem, and I got to sympathise with you, is because you can only look at your Southland District Council, but there's a power of wood coming out of Clutha into Southland, and then it's got to go through the Invercargill city to get to the port. So then you can only look at one little piece of the puzzle of the ecosystem of what is forestry. And so I don't envy you on that, but yeah, I'm not sure how you do it, to be honest.
Yeah, that's the challenge that we're faced with. But yeah, thanks once again, Dan, and yeah, safe travels, and yeah, thank you for. Hopefully, they wouldn't hear any background noise in the airport, but hopefully everything goes well for you this afternoon.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks very much.
See you. Bye.
Okay, and I see our next speaker, David Boniface, has come into the room. So this is on page 112 of our agenda, and this is David Boniface from the Fields and Trails Trust. Welcome along, David.
Thank you for the opportunity to submit, and also the opportunity to speak to our submission. I'll sit down. It's okay.
Yeah, certainly.
Our submission is relatively self-explanatory, and essentially the point that we're trying to make is that the Around the Mountain and Field and Trails are two incredible trail assets that we have in the province now that are functioning reasonably well and drawing large numbers. We have the point that we make, though, is that we're two different entities. We've essentially had to progress our trail through fundraising and the inputs of a very enthusiastic bunch of volunteers. And we see a significant amount of money being now allocated to the Around the Mountain Trail, and just wonder if we shouldn't be thinking more globally in terms of the Southland situation. Our trail is just as important to Southland as the Around the Mountain. And we find ourselves as professional fundraisers essentially to keep ourselves developing and maintaining what we've got. We see a significant amount of money allocated through the LTP to the ATM in this following period, and just wonder if this is really equitable. A large amount of ratepayer money being progressed into one important entity, whereas we see ourselves as just as important, and wonder if there shouldn't be some contribution made to particularly our operational and maintenance funding. And we think we can justify our situation by virtue of where we have got to as a trust and as a trail entity. We had Christine Angus complete an impact assessment of our trail, our Lake to Lake trail, and it clearly showed that we were contributing to the community of the order of about $3 million a year. This being made up from the activities on the trail from users, but also from the events that we hold and the activity that we're creating. Our numbers are up at around or in excess of 50,000 on the busier section of our trail, and we make comparisons with the numbers that are on the ATM. And don't get it wrong, we are working closely with ATM now. We met last Friday actually and shared our thoughts. But what we're not seeing is sort of equity, I think, across the total trail scene in Southland. What the answer to that is long term, I don't know, but hopefully something comes out of the Rob McIntyre reports that are currently in front of the people and councils. We've begged, borrowed, haven't stolen anything, but we've raised $2 million and we've developed 35 kilometres of trail. Our numbers are fantastic. This year so far, we are at last year's numbers already, in that 50,000 on the busiest sections. We are progressing our Te Anau Downs trail. The potential for that trail is immense if you believe what has come out of the Milford Opportunities Group study. If there is a commitment to trail between Cascade Creek and Field National Park boundary and through to Te Anau Downs, there's the potential for something of the order of $45 million a year to be earned or generated through the network that will prevail. So don't get it wrong, we would like a little more help. We are worried about our financial position long term if we don't get more support from within the district, or somehow we are not underpinned at all by a local authority or the likes. It's more we do get some money, and we've been very grateful for that from the Te Anau Community Board. We've had pockets of money from the district, and so we're very thankful for that as well. But really looking long term and looking to sustain this incredible asset that we've got, we would like to see some investment into us from an operational cost and maintenance cost perspective. If that's at all possible, we would be very, very grateful for that. Essentially, that's our situation.
No, thank you, David, and thanks to the written line for coming along. And they've travelled quite far to come along and present to us.
I actually live in Carcass, so thank you.
But it's very clear that you're doing great work, and you've done great work to get this to where it is from a fully volunteer basis, and take my hat off to you for that. And don't take this question as reflecting on that poorly, but in terms of the state that we find ourselves in with that affordability and our rates increases that we're hearing a lot from, it's being unaffordable and us getting told to stick to our knitting.
Sure.
How would you answer that kind of question in terms of investing in the cycle trail, which some people may deem as not quite council's living?
Well, I'd say that you are invested in that industry through your through the around the mountain and are finding ratepayers' money to ensure the success of that. And we believe that there needs to be some equity in that. We wouldn't want to see them fall by the wayside either. And it's great the extent that you support a full-time position and the extent that you do, and you're looking at development. But I guess we would just like perhaps even a portion of what's been allocated in that space, really. We would also look to see support long-term with the hub concept in Te Anau. But there's a lot of money in the parks reserves. Not as we see it.
So great ride status, what does it take to achieve that?
It's almost impossible right now. A limited amount of money, they don't actually want any more great rides. We've tried 3 times now.
Right.
We thought that once you got to a certain stage, you'd almost qualify automatically. That isn't the case. They've got a fixed pot of money. There's something like 25 odd trails within that mix, and they're not looking for anybody more.
Councillor Menzies.
Thank you, and I haven't got an answer to this question or thought about it too much, but just in the longer term, and it's not just for the Ordnance Trails Trust, it's for any of the trusts that are developing cycleways. And you know, we understand if you've got the car on the road, then you're paying road user charges, etc. How might the cyclists, and I say not just this, your trail, contribute to the rides that they are using, where they are developed? Have you ever given any thought as a trust to the potential? I don't know whether you get donations or anything now as it is, or
we do. We have a barcode out there, and we get donations from users.
Yeah. We
are able to tap into some of the local businesses. One particular Te Anau business gives us 10% of their bike hire money.
Yeah.
The long and the short of it, though, is that we have any right to buy concessions. So it's really the goodwill of those businesses or the users that ends up giving us some income. We had the same discussion with the ATM people last Friday about how we can generate more. We can't do anything as of right. It really comes down to the goodwill of the businesses. And there's one particular operator that operates on the ATM and operates on ours, who we've tackled several times, and says, I don't guide the people on your trail, so you might do anything.
And how it might change the cyclist attitude towards the great provision they have throughout New Zealand of the cycle trails at no expense except to travel and accommodation, I guess, in which they're contributing to the region.
Correct.
Like that. But just interested that you do get some donations that way.
It's reasonably significant, actually. I think we would probably $7,000 to $8,000 a year in that respect. But we do get a lot of local donations. We opened a section from New Patent Bridge up to Patience Bay the other day, and one Patience Bay residents gave us $6,000. They were so grateful that now got access into that subdivision. But we can't rely on that long term. We're looking for $1,000 a kilometre per year going forward. So, you know, we want $35,000 a year right now. We've been fortunate to have some funds for nature money this last 3 years that's got us through very well. Maybe it's some development that we wouldn't have. You know, I asked the same question around the mountain. How are they going to fund 29 kilometres of off the road development?
Yes.
Well, we have run out of time, but I will just take a quick question from Councillor Byers, seeing as he was waiting there.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, David. Oh, no, you don't have to answer this. It's possibly a slightly controversial question, but I'm wondering, long-term benefit for TR now, which do you think is more likely to provide that? The Te Anau Manapori Airport or an extensive bike trails network around the region?
I'm not qualified in airports. I think there's a very good long-term and sustainable revenue for the community from the trail system. Okay. I hope it remains that way.
Thanks very much, David. And once again, appreciate the work that you're doing, and if you can pass on acknowledgement to your trust that's doing it.
I know, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, so our speaker hasn't arrived yet, so.
Okay, great, I'll rewrite it.
Cool. So I'll adjourn and we can take a break. So I'll move to the chair once again that we adjourn. Seconded by Councillor Means. It's carried, we'll come back and.
What do you have the council time now?
Oh, between,
Um,
there's a little bit on the road.
But if we've got 40 minutes, we could possibly have some council time.
Have you heard from Windham's actually coming?
No.
In front of you, so I probably wasn't going to spend too much long going on over it, to be fair, but this is the main points. First up, the definition of repairs and maintenance versus capital. It's been a little bit frustrating lately from the community board's perspective, trying to get a few jobs done that to me are huge dollar values and getting held up with, I'm not 100% sure where it's getting held up, but when it goes over slightly, you know, when you have your project cost and then you get a quote from a few years later and there's a gap, I mean, you've already in the annual plan hit a certain dollar value, when it goes over, it has to be expected to never get held up because we can't get on and get something done. And to me, I know there's certain dollar values around there, but for example, if you had $15,000 that was allowed for it and your budget was 10,000 more, I can't see why. To me, that 15,000 has been approved, so why can't we just put the 10,000 through our budget and let's move on? Problem with this is we had community groups, we've told things are going to happen, they haven't happened, we're now getting pulled up, slowed down, and to me it should have been dealt to in this financial year. Same things with, like, you should have a building like this, there's a cost to get things fixed that are broken. To me, it's not an asset. I mean, it's not like a new asset, it's just you're fixing it and move on. You know, we're just not getting things done. And to me, that's process. And then I have to sit and listen to people, projects team come and tell me that you've got to sort out things, we've got to drop things off, getting things done, but the whole process, we can't get things finished. So, and you wonder why we say, no, we're not dropping anything off. So it's more around the process issue, I believe. And I mean, I'm not talking much out of your big budget. We don't have a big budget, but your big budget. Right, and it's just more really. Levels of service as well. If you've listened to me for the last probably 6 years, you know how much I love levels of service. Let's just catch up with this. So my problem with level of service where we are, I actually, and I'm not usually one that wants to go back in time, but it's so much easier if I have one department to deal with, not three. Because when you're dealing with one department that's more community focused, probably two departments that are more district-wide focused, it's actually quite hard to get things done. So I'd rather have one department that's looking after a town than three in their specific areas. No, that doesn't quite work with the way you do things, but I do believe that might solve one levels of service problem, especially if contractually they're not getting pulled up to do these jobs. Dog control. We've had issues with dog control in our areas, and I just wanted to bring it to attention that I don't think the service has been living up to its standard, and I'd like to see better improvement in that. Especially in areas where, and mainly I'm talking about Curie Bay, there's some endangered species. We're trying to get dog control people down there
doesn't seem to work. You know, they need to be at the weekend. They're not tourists. They're not international tourists. The New Zealanders or the locals taking their dogs, going for a run, we need education. We need to be seen. Need to be out and about and seeing some other sort of structure. And I appreciate they can't be everywhere, but we've identified hotspots and we need to see something happening regarding that. Sorry, something else. Sorry. I noticed in the I'll go back to number 3, sorry. In the museum, with the Wyndham Museum regarding the LTP, I found in the previous information we had that we had money allocated for that to be demolished and now it's disappeared. I mean, part of the whole process around the museum and the museum moving and relocating was that we were then going to be bringing the building down. Now, I can't understand how that can disappear. I mean, it's been there for years, we have a certain amount of money and now it's not there. And we put pressure on for the museum to move, that we're only a certain period of time allowed in the building. And I need to make sure that goes back in the LTP so that we continue that process. Because if it's never a chance for thought process of that, they might have looked at coming back to Wyndham, I believe a lot of these people are visual and we need to tidy that area up. We can't have that building standing in forever. So I don't understand how it's disappeared. Freedom Camping Ambassador, like my understanding is that opportunities have been missed in the last current year to pick up funding regarding this, and need to make sure that funding is either picked up this year or even go out on a limb and say, I think the community board need to, or council need to be funding someone. I mean, half salary, half a year. We need to have that service in place. Tourist numbers are back up. We've got probably 6 or 7 hotspots. We've now, fortunately or unfortunately, now improved another area down there with toilets in the home and nice hotel area, which I'm sure people think they should be parking in. We need to have that Freedom Camping Ambassador back in the Catlins, lower southern Southland area. And needs to be funded. And council don't do it. Just about put it on the budget for the expenditure and put up for us to fund it. But there has been funding options available in the past and haven't been picked up and need to be picked up. They should have the information on whatever the previous Freedom Camping Ambassador recorded in the past. So it should be a quick, I don't know, 2-hour job for the application for them. Don't believe there should be the excuses not to. Or the Fiordland one can come and live in the Catlins and we'll see how that goes for 6 months. Back to council's actually LTP parts. The community will discuss recycling, and we don't believe wheelie bins is the right solution. We believe we just need more transfer stations because so many people don't get wheelie bins anyway. We've just put a nice new one outside the gates at the Mendale area, which is still looking very smart, very pristine. And I see the wheelie bins are out there every Thursday waiting to be collected. I think a couple more in our area would make them quite accessible for a bulk of the rural people. I think that's giving everyone ample opportunity to recycle if they so wish.
So just to interrupt, if you wanted to allow time for questions, it's just 3 minutes left in the entire time. So
that's what we're waiting for. And the roads and bridges, I think everyone just agreed that they're an essential part of what we do and where we are and where we live. Roadings and bridges, but part of my other submission was we need to add footpaths in there as well, because they're another very important part of the community board. What we look after, they're a very expensive asset for us, just like they are, the roads and bridges are for council. So we need to get better R&M money put aside for footpaths, because we're not going to be able to afford to replace every footpath. You know, and I mean spraying the weeds, looking after doing basics. And because it's district funded, I think we miss out there as well. I think that's me in a nutshell.
Cool. No, thank you, Pam, and a very strong advocate for your community as always, and you want to come along and present to these things. So thank you for taking the time. A couple of questions myself, but I've been holding the floor a lot today, so I'll go to the floor first, and councillor Ravenpool has got to put her hand up, so
Rob, thanks for coming again. Just a question, you talked 6 years of talking levels of service. So my question for you, you're talking about working with one department. From 6 years ago to now, were you working with one department? Now you're something like working with three?
No, I probably been going back more historically when we had engineers. Not that that was the perfect answer either, but it was more, they probably had the ability to get things done. So what we have a problem with, and maybe that's just the way the contracts are delivered in their area, but hypothetically spraying, I can have 3 different departments looking after 3 different lots of spraying depending on where they are. So when I go, the spraying's not been done, no one takes any notice because the switch department is responsible for it.
Okay, so you see high efficiencies.
Well, yeah, whereas if you had one department looking after like within 50k something, when I'm phoned up spraying, I only have to go to one person and they would get the spraying done. So we had spraying that's required on footpaths, blood ditches and, around the Curvin Channel and where the mile and all that, and everyone else just gets really untidy.
just the other part that you mentioned around the community board delegation, would you support the community board having more delegation in terms of the quantum of the amount of the work to speed things up, so that it doesn't have to come to council and the community board can actually?
You regarding mine?
Sorry?
You regarding the getting things fixed?
Yeah, well, a lot of that sort of maintenance stuff and those assets, community board determines it needs to be done. Do you see the step to council as an extra wasted step in terms of?
I think in these examples it would certainly be helpful, because I don't think it's a debate about what's getting done. It's just there's dollar value difference, probably underestimated in the EMP process to be true. And for example, on all door fix, I mean, the quotes are very similar. You can't really argue the price, so it's just about the ability to get on and get that part of it done.
And do you think it'd be useful having the board having input into district funded activities, having that input in and that awareness of what's going on?
Well, I think we have input, it's just it doesn't get reflected in the budgets and we don't get to set the budgets. So how do we get things done? Because I'm overhearing about there's no money. Well, I don't see them. If I can set them, I would.
Thank you, Ben. We have run out of time and I still hold the floor with questions myself, sorry. But yeah, thank you very much once again for the written one and the as well. Appreciate you coming along.
All good.
And the submitter is, I'll get to the right day, we've got it Wednesday, is Karen Owen from the Hathaway Museum, and it's on page 361. So welcome to the table, Karen.
Oh, nice big tiny, you can't miss that, can you? Thank you for having me. I just wanted to really speak to this, just to give you all an opportunity to ask questions if you want to. Assume that you've all had a good read. One thing that we often get asked at the museum is people see how much gets spent on heritage and the upgrades, and they make the assumption that that all comes to the local museum, and that's obviously not the case. Not all of it filters down through to your local museum. So I just thought I'd give you a little bit of context around the sorts of outcomes that you do get from the investment that's made in heritage that do come down to Hathaway. And just give you a little bit of context, I understand how when you get to those final stages of the LTP process, it's very easy to look at non-core services and try and trim things back a bit to make things stack up. But for the heritage sector in particular, the small changes make a really big impact to places like us. So it's been pretty rough over the last few years in terms of the impacts of COVID on visitor numbers. And the reason how that has such a big impact on us is more than 2/3 of our income is generated from visitors coming through the door, paying for admission fees and profits on retail. And so that's meant it's been really difficult to, with the slow recovery of numbers for us, it means it's really difficult to make up for those lost income streams because we can't magic up more visitors to come through the doors. So we've been really fortunate the last 2 years to receive National Services hardship grant from Te Papa. So that's no longer exists. So this year's our first year kind of standing on our own again, trying to make things stack up. without that. Of the investment that is made into Te Hikoi, we have about, last financial year was 15,000 visitors through the door, which is about 3,000 visitors less than what it was prior to COVID. About 1,700 of those users just come to use our toilets, the supermarket. I'm sure all of you have probably used our toilets at some point as you've been coming through Wellington. And about 3,300 come in and ask questions for visitor information or browsing the shop. And we find the on-the-ground impacts of those are things like people deciding to move to Riverton. We've got numerous volunteers who have come in, had a really good experience when they've decided to move to Riverton and wanted to volunteer for us. So we do have a team of, we have about 8,200 people pay to go through the museum and about 200 a year who are Southern District ratepayers, who we offer them a free entry when they're bringing paying visitors with them. We also have 20 volunteers, which seems like quite a lot. So all our front of house stuff is done mostly by paid staff and a couple of volunteers, but we have other people behind the scenes who do all of our collection care work. So what they're doing is, I'll go quickly, is basically looking at new things that are being offered to the museum. As one of the few museums that's open 7 days a week, we do get a lot of donations coming through, and they can be anywhere from photocopies of or newspaper articles that people think are valuable to a collection of 300 odd photos where we put them a bit of research and try and find out who the people are. We share as much of that as we can online, but the cost of sharing things online is also a rising cost for us. As the more we share online, the more we've got to upgrade our package that we're on with sharing images on eHive. We've got lots of other stuff that happens behind the scenes. Packaging, to give you an example, we have these tiny little envelopes. These cost, each photo has to get stored in an acid-free envelope. One of these is 75 cents up to the larger size of $3.75. So when we get someone walking the door with 300 photos, we'd suddenly start going, where are we going to find that money to do all the packaging for these sorts of things? We've got lots of pest control ongoing work. We've got big overheads like rising insurance costs. Insurance is $16,000 a year just for the building. That's not even insuring the collection. We don't insure the collection, only the objects on loan from the museums. We can't afford to do it. So that's just to give you a little taste of what's involved. But yeah, some of our volunteers, our youngest one's 14, our oldest is 93. They volunteer anywhere between 1 hour a week to some of them 3 days a week. So it's a big team of people who only get slowed down by not through their always abundant with enthusiasm. They get slowed down by lack of resources to roll out and do the jobs that they want to do. And as they learn more, the expectations for what they can achieve gets higher. But we're not always matched with resourcing to be able to help them do that work. So yeah, so just a chance to ask questions. Or is that my minutes gone?
No, you've got another 5 minutes of questions now.
Perfect time.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very great submission. I won't hold the time, valuable time for questions. Councillor Menzies has a hand up. So
Thank you. Yeah, just a question around the digitisation process, which has been ongoing over the last few years, and you've almost reached the stage of finishing, I think, the photographs.
We have about 800 more photographs to take, so that's what I was helping with this morning.
So that I understand has resulted in a charge that you have around eHive of a couple of $1,000. So although that sort of means progress and there's other changes, I just wondered what the impact is for you, if you have it, on visitors. So as a result of that digitisation, do you feel you're getting more visitors who are inspired to come because they are looking online, or you're getting less because they just go to online rather than?
I don't think there's a direct correlation between the two, but some of the impacts of having the things online. So I just did a report for the same period. So online we had over 26,000 online views for that same year that we had 15,000 physical visitors. 2,500 of them were specifically searching Te Hikoi's collection online, and about 500 of them were looking for general museum stuff that happened to come across our objects. But there's things that have come out of that, such as people finding objects online, talking to them sharing information, and then becoming volunteers. So it's had positive other spin-offs. Had someone email me yesterday saying we've had this family photo in our photo album for years and we've never known who it is, but because we scanned the backside of our copy of it, which had their name on it, they were able to finally identify who the person was in the photo. There's people who have come in and they've found things on, like they've been restoring an old desk that has like a fold down, and they haven't known how to do it, but they found the photo of our one open online, so they've been able to understand how to do their repairs. So it's really hard to quantify what those benefits are. It's really difficult. New Zealand was really trying for a while to try and quantify what those benefits are, but yeah, it's quite, but I haven't seen a direct correlation. I think for us, is we're more looking towards what are the opportunities that having our collection online is. So one of our biggest risks will be, so we have about 1,600 students a year come through the museum at the moment. When Southland Museum and the Carver's Museum reopens, those students will likely disappear and start going to that museum. And so probably what our unique selling point will be the fact that people can research the objects before they get there and request to see something special. And so that's sort of where we're focusing, doing things differently to what other museums do. So there probably is a loss of some people who don't see things, but who don't come and see them, but because the benefits. So for example, somebody wants to come and see an object that their family donated years ago and we can't get it, that's not on display because we don't have the right environmental conditions always for particular things, we can show it to them online and they can look at it that way. So, so.
Thank you. Councillor Rutherford.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Karen. Nice to see you. Your presentation was great. Heritage funding and your community board funding, notably here around inflation adjusted. Is it inflation adjusted now?
The community board funding isn't. Other ones, the last 3 years they've inflation adjusted them. And also that district heritage fund was committed to for 3 years, which was a huge relief because it was year after year going, are we going to get that again? Is it going to be a close the doors situation? We don't know what the decision's going to be. So.
And are they your major investors in your operational funding for the museum?
One larger one would be, or used to be, Aotearoa Gaming. We used to get about 20,000 a year for wages, but they've dropped that this year. So we had slowly been increasing it and it's been dropped.
So your visitor living is supporting your own operational?
It's a very
challenging.
Yeah, everything's kind of like one go. It's a trickle-on effect. So we looked at that. For example, during COVID times, we thought if we are going to have to close the doors, what's that going to mean for funding we get from the community board? Because they're essentially paying for a 7-day-a-week service. If we can't do that anymore, is that then going to be a cut to that? And what's that going to? As soon as we start limiting our hours, then we get drops in all the other revenue sources that are reliant on foot traffic.
So Aotearoa, what was the reason behind dropping the funding?
I'm sure it was just demand. So same as everyone, stretched with implications.
There goes the buzzer. Sorry, we're not happy to on this, but just reflecting on. I mean, we've had you're the third one today of community groups. We've had swimming pools, soccer trails, and now the museum where you guys are doing a lot with a little. And it's, just want to acknowledge the great work that you do. 20 volunteers running what in some parts of the country are run with full-time staff and a whole lot of funding. So you're doing really great work, and it'll be nice to have a big pot of gold that we can throw your way and fully fund you. But yeah, thank you once again for
and if anyone wants to come out and have a look sometime and have a look behind the scenes, have a bit more information.
It's better than Starbucks.
Put that on the door.
Yeah. Thanks, Karen. Okay. That concludes our speakers for the day. And do we get to actually see the we don't So I'm thinking we will reconvene the meeting tomorrow for our first they come through earlier and just have a bit of a chat about some of the information that we need from staff. So I'll move from the chair that we adjourn the meeting until 11 o'clock tomorrow. Do I second it? Councillor Rutherford, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Anybody against?
Can I just ask a question first? So on the schedule it says 9:30 AM first submitters. So there's no names, so that means there's no first submitters.
I'm being allowed that time in case everyone.
Right, okay, and it's got to make sense.
So we'll work that out afterwards. I'll pass the next question. Sorry, I do the thing, sorry, yeah. Yeah, I did carry the motion, thank you. And I'd just like to thank everybody for a very productive debate. So I'm glad to hear from everyone. So of coming in tomorrow morning, I'm thinking probably 10 o'clock start again. And if you just have a think about some of the information that you want from the team for the roading, specifically the roading stuff that's been